I'd like to call to order the City Council Committee meeting for Monday, June 22nd. Tuesday, June 22nd. 21st. Okay. Don't give me a holiday.
Switch on the far left.
All right, we have a
They all
couple.
have to be in that position.
We have a couple of presentations. First by Commissioner Ferrari, 2021 audit acceptance.
Thank you, Madam President, City Council, the Mayor. I'd like to present John Taflowski, our partner at our independent auditor company, Kuzak and Company. Explain the audit of the City of Schenectady for 2021. Go ahead,
Thanks,
John.
Tony. And thank you, everybody, for having me here tonight. I wanted to start off just by saying thank you to Tony and the rest of your staff here at the city for everything they do during the audit, and especially to Liz Nelson, who's our primary contact during the audit. We really appreciate everything that they do to help us out during the audit. You have a great staff here, very helpful with all of our requests, and I just wanted to extend my appreciation to them. Our ultimate responsibility during the audit is to review your financial statements and issue an opinion on your financial statements as to whether they're materially stated and in compliance with generally accepted accounting principles, otherwise known as GAAP. Our audit takes place in three main phases. The first main phase is our pre-audit phase. This takes place during December, and what we're doing during this phase is we're reviewing your internal control systems, we're testing those internal control systems, we perform preliminary variance and budget analysis, we review the council minutes, and we also go through our own internal risk assessment procedures. The next major phase of our audit is our audit fieldwork. This takes place in March. What we're doing during this phase is we're taking the information that we obtained during our pre-audit phase, and we're using that to develop our audit programs, which we use to test our final year-end balances and determine whether we feel they're materially stated or not. So the final phase of our audit is our reporting phase. During this phase, what we're doing is we're reviewing the financial statements that are prepared by your senior accountant, and we're also reporting on the final results. So the financial statements that you have in front of you are a 76-page document overall, and it's comprised of several major parts. First major part is going to be your management's discussion and analysis. That's on pages 1 through 8 of your statements. This is a required but unaudited section of the financial statements. It summarizes your operating results and other financial highlights. If you're not familiar with the financial statements in general, I always like to tell clients this is a really good read. Gives you a topside summary of what happened during the year. Pages 9 through 11 of your financial statements, this is the independent auditor's report. This is where we issue our...
I said it was there, right? The draft?
No.
I sent it. Pretty sure I sent it.
Yes, well, it's
I just sent it.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So pages 9 through 11 is your independent auditor's report. This is where we issue our opinion on the financial statements. One important item to note on your financial statements, these are presented at the fund and account group level only, exclusive of your non-current governmental asset account group. I am pleased to say that we've once again issued an unmodified opinion on your financial statements. This is the highest level of assurance that we can give you. It's considered a clean report. We had no reportable issues and no findings during the audit. Pages 12 through 14, these are your governmental fund balance sheets, statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. Your approximated operating results for the year ended 2021. General fund had a surplus of $5.6 million. Water fund had a deficiency of $57,000. Sewer fund had a deficiency of $745,000, primarily because of the use of your capital reserves. Recreation fund had a surplus of $84,000. Special grants and special revenue, deficiency of $5,000. And your capital projects had a surplus of $7.3 million. That was primarily due to the proceeds from your serial bond and issuance of band redemptions. So the contributing factors to your overall surplus in the general fund, and these are all approximated numbers, sales tax revenue exceeded budget by about $2 million. Casino revenues exceeded expectations by $841,000. Prior year tax lien collection exceeded expectations by $975,000. Insurance recoveries exceeded expectations by $1.2 million. AIM funds withheld by the state in 2020 were now recouped in 2021, $560,000. Sale of city properties exceeded your budget by $478,000. And the federal ARPA funds which were utilized, $786,000. Overall, we feel that management does a really great job in monitoring your reserves. Year-end fund balance in the general fund was $16.3 million, with $6 million in restricted funds. Your ban and TAM borrowings decreased by $18.1 million for your principal repayment and conversion to serial bonds. New York State EFC borrowing increased by $4.2 million. Serial bond debt increased by $12.8 million for your ban conversion. Overall, there was a decrease in the city's net pension liability of $49 million for underfunded ERS and PFRS liabilities. Balance at year-end was $13.7 million. Total OPEB liability, that increased by $4 million to $336 million. And those two liability accounts that I just mentioned, those are under GASB Statements 68 and 75, which require that the underfunded pension and liabilities and other post-employment benefit liabilities are recorded on an actuarial valuation basis. Page 15 of your financial statements, that's your custodial fund. As required by GASB Statement 84, this is no longer a typical trust and agency relationship. This custodial fund includes your property taxes collected for other governments, but not yet permitted. Pages 17 through 59 of the financial statements, these are your footnotes detailing the significant accounting policies and material account balances as they appear on the face of the statements. Pages 60 through 66, this is your required supplemental information. Includes your budget to actual reports, ERS and PFRS pension liabilities, and also your OPEB detail and related ratios. Pages 67 through 76, this is your federal single audit. Because the city expended more than $750,000 in federal funds, you are required to have what's called a single audit. Total federal expenditures for the year were $6.6 million. We are required to rotate your major and high-risk programs every third year. So the major programs that we tested during 2021, this was your ESG grant, your lead hazard grant, DOT grants, and also your ARPA funds. We feel that the city has good internal controls over your federal funds, and we had no material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, or any reportable items, and we were able to issue an unmodified report on the single audit as well. The ARPA funds, these are required to be obligated by December 31st, 2024, and dispersed by December 31st, 2026. The city currently has approximately $52 million in ARPA funds between 2021 and 2022 that need to be expended by 2024. The general fund surplus in operations shows the city has continued to improve. Overall, from an accounting and control standpoint, we feel the controls in the city are very good. Operating as designed, accounting information is reliable. The last item that you received in your packet was the post-governance letter. That's a required communication towards the end of the audit. This is normally the old management letter where if we had any comments during the audit, we present them to you at that point. No items to report to you. The audit was very clean overall. Internal controls are good, and we didn't have anything to report to council. At this point, I would be happy to take any questions on the audit process in general or the financial statements.
Well, did anyone have an opportunity to review this prior to the meeting tonight?
I was trying to pull it off.
Okay. So if you have general questions, but
It was transmitted to the clerk on the 13th.
And it was forwarded to all council.
today?
No, the 13th.
Same day, 11:20 a.m.
6:13.
Today. The 13th.
13th.
So, do you have questions? Otherwise, I would suggest that you make sure we have an opportunity to review it, and then just before the council meeting next week, we could just call finance to order and just vote on it then. I want everyone to make sure they have an opportunity to review. Oh, here it is. Mr.
It seems as though some member didn't get the email or it was just overlooked.
Mhm.
So I will suggest that we wait. Yeah, we will wait until you get a chance to review it.
Right, and then we can just call finance to order and vote on it just prior to the council meeting next week. You have enough opportunity. Are there any general questions today regarding the audit process?
Good, clean audit.
Yeah, you have a great team here. They do a really great job in helping us out. Your audit is a very big undertaking. I know it's easy to see the financial statement and say, here's the final audit, but there's a lot that goes on, during the audit, before the audit, during the audit, and after the audit. So you have a really great staff here. Everybody does a great job.
I do have a question. You have notes that you read from to explain to us what was on each page. Is there a way for us to be able to get that information?
I can just send it to you if you want.
That's
Yeah,
perfect, so that way people
summary.
can refer to, absolutely, everybody.
Absolutely.
I have one more quick question. So you were saying that general operations are getting better in the report?
During 2021, there was an overall surplus in the general fund of, 5.6 million. So it was a very good year overall. It was kind of seeing that recovery of the COVID period. Sales tax revenue increased significantly. A lot of items came back online that were either held back in 2020 or, there was new funds that were out there that allowed, you to reap the benefit of those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so what we'll do is call a special meeting at 6:30 next Monday for finance. All right. Chief Clifford, now we have a presentation on police department technology.
Don't listen to Seaver.
Thank you for your time. I'm sorry. Thank you for your time. I'm going to start off with an introduction while representatives from Axon get the PowerPoint hooked up, and I'm mindful of your time tonight. And I just wanted to talk about why we're here, and then I'll turn it over to them to kind of go over the platform. We're here to talk about technology at the police department, and we're at a time that we need to make a decision on which path to take on our body-worn cameras. Back in 2018, we made the decision to go with Panasonic. We knew that we had about a 3 to 4 year life on the cameras themselves. We went fully deployed in 2019, and 3 years later, we're in 2022. We're expected by the end of the year that they are going to be at the end of their life. They're already out of warranty, so we're paying for the repairs as they come up. Additionally, we've had some problems with them in the 3.5 years that we've been using them, and that's what forced me to start, I should say me, myself and the command staff to start looking at other vendors as we transition. Staying with Panasonic and just refreshing with them is not an option because they sold their product to another company. They renamed it iPro, and we would have to buy a whole new platform anyways because the docks that they go into in the cars no longer fit the product that they sell. So we're basically buying everything all new. As we started looking at the different products out there, we realized that 4 years later, technology has advanced. Everything's gotten better and cheaper. We are a customer already of Axon, which makes our tasers. So we started looking at them a little bit closer, and what I quickly realized is that they're an industry leader in this space. They bring technology to each individual component that really no other competitor brings. And as we started conversations with the sales representatives who are here tonight, we realized that they actually bundle everything together. And when they bundle it together, there's cost savings, and there's benefits to where that digital evidence goes, which is to a cloud-based platform called evidence.com. And there's many benefits that come to using that on our end and with everybody that we interact with, from the district attorney's office to public defender's office, defense attorneys, and even citizens, and their ability to send us video that they retrieve if they see it out in the community. So I will now turn it over to Ben, who's the senior sales representative here, and Doug and his colleagues, Jim and John, who are somewhere here in the room. And they will walk through the program, and again, it's going to be an entry-level introduction, and feel free to ask questions at the end.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, everyone. As Chief stated, my name is Ben Doritas, Senior Regional Manager for Axon. So for the past 5.5 years, I've been working with agencies to deploy Axon's technologies. I'm accompanied by Doug Blyler. Doug is working with you as your taser my counterpart. Thank you guys for your partnership, with the taser tool for law enforcement here that is deployed within the PD. What we're going to cover today is really kind of scope down to a high level that provides and gives a general sense to Axon's law enforcement tools, specifically a bundle we call the Officer Safety Plan. When we started as Taser, now Axon, our mission is to protect life. That's both, officers and citizens. The body camera and a lot of the evidence capture components are there to capture the truth and protect the truth. And so this bundling, the officer safety plan that we're going to go through, we're going to highlight some of the key elements of it, why it's important. Doug's going to touch upon a little bit around the Taser 7, and then we'll open it up, for any questions that you may have. So, with that, really, one of the key elements is going to be really the body camera. And that's what the officer is wearing. Today, you have a body camera. When we talk about the Axon Body 3, better protecting and making sure we're not missing those critical moments, we've got the camera that has the ability to, you'll see shortly, turn on based on critical events. So if a weapon is drawn, if a taser comes off of safety, the light bar on the patrol car goes on, we have the ability to start this camera. The camera has a built-in buffer, so we're never going to miss a moment. We can go back up to 18 hours to grab that footage should an officer not activate his or her body camera. It's one of the key features here. And this is the first ruggedized body camera in the market that has embedded LTE. So being able to do things like, where is my officer on a map? What are some of the officers around him or her? And being able to live stream to see what they're seeing so you can make the best life-saving decisions for all involved in the incident from this camera. So on the next slide, it kind of lays out what I mentioned around the activation of these cameras, the auto activation. So this is a technology that's not deployed within the current platform for the city. And these are critical officer safety features that are going to ensure the camera activates. So the first one is signal sidearm. Small sensor on the holster. When a weapon is drawn, that body camera, Axon body cameras, in-car cameras are going to start activating. They're going to start recording based on that action. The second one is Axon's signal for the Taser 7s. So on the next slide, you'll see when a taser, you saw the weapon being drawn, well, specifically with the taser, when that taser is taken off of safety, so it's energized, we're going to emit that same burst. And what that's going to do is, again, push that bubble out, turn on cameras within a 35-foot radius, and continue for 30 seconds to ensure anyone here on scene is actively recording. So just quickly kind of demo that. Doug has a taser with inert cartridges, but he will just power it on. And this camera, which was in buffer mode, so it was on and buffering. You see here now I'm blinking red. I'm actively recording, and I've captured, going back 30 seconds, what happened, and now I'm actively recording and capturing that here on this camera. So I'm just going to go ahead and end that recording. The next step on this camera, I talked about LTE. So this camera is now actively recording, but what it's also doing is it's communicating in real time back to the police department that a weapon was taken off of safety, or a weapon was drawn, or a CW was taken off of safety. And so that provides an alert that then provides the ability for law enforcement to be able to live stream in on this camera, to be able to see, what is unfolding in front of Officer Doritas. So that is providing, help when it's needed. Where's my officer? How can I best respond to them? And then I'm going to go ahead and end this recording really quickly. I have the ability from this camera to offload that video immediately to secure cloud storage. So now it can be reviewed and start to be digested along with other evidence captured from the Axon in-car in near real time on the back-end system. So that's some of the key features of the Axon body camera, as well as signal and respond. In addition to the hardware, specifically the body camera, we have built in complete fixed cost packages for refreshes of the body cameras and the docks. So they come with 5 years of warranty. Chief kind of talked about, hey, they have come up on end of life, and typically significant cost increases to keep refreshing these technologies. We've built in the program 2 refreshes of cameras and docks. So you're insulating yourself from technology costs that do typically go up on the hardware side of this. And then we also provide these software components for officers to be able to use mobile apps to tag their videos. In this case, we're going to be automatically tagging the officers' videos for them. So tagging is very simply making, titling it as a traffic stop so we know how long to keep it. That takes time. That's for every call for service. Well, we're able to do that automatically because we're going to talk to CAD and RMS and save that officer time, the detective's time, and make sure that evidence is correctly categorized and managed within the system through both an app and then automatically. A lot of what you're going to talk about now, once we get beyond Axon Fleet 3, which is completely integrated with the body camera. So you have an in-car solution today. Separately, agencies have ALPR. They're really beholden to significant spend, and they're able to do like 4 vehicles. What Axon's done, and you can see our dash camera actually has 2 lenses, is we're not only capturing the video of the dash of the vehicle, as well as backseat camera view, but that second lens looking forward is doing real-time ALPR, and we're able to do it for every vehicle rather than just 4. So these are real-time alerts from hot lists, so officers can get alerts when certain different hits are made off of specific lists for bad guys. So that's going to enable safer streets, safer communities, with that real-time ALPR with Axon in-car. I think I typically cover both on that one. We can move on. All of this evidence, the in-car, the body cameras, Axon interview room as well, feed to a central backend system. And this is where everything gets streamlined. Everything is secure. This is essentially a CJIS, very secure environment, hosted environment, where you can bring in, automatically Axon things are going to upload, but you can bring and click and drag in all types of video, from bodega CCTV, security TV, citizens videos. You're going to be managing your cases there. You're going to be able to securely share them with partner agencies such as the New York State Police, who are running this exact program, as well as many other agencies throughout the region. So within evidence.com, we've got tools specifically for redaction, automating processes to redact these videos. So varying different stakeholders, from what we call capture, which is, has an officer go in here and find his or her video, tag it, all the way through the courtroom. How do we get this to, a defense attorney, somebody who needs this for a FOIA request, without burning DVDs and driving them, doing all those significant, time spent workflows today. So, second thing within evidence.com is the complete unlimited cloud storage, the CJIS security provided by our partners, Microsoft Azure within their CJIS Go Cloud, and Axon's security. So we're taking on the risk of malware, ransomware, and housing and protecting that precious asset, if you will. So I'm going to move on to the next slide that automates the redaction. So the blurring of faces, the ability to frame by frame track and ensure that an audio element, a screen, is not part of the video. The solution goes as far as to use tools. We've tested an AI engine just to go in and identify certain things that are majority that are redacted, such as faces, MDT screens, and license plates. And it's going to go do that. Huge time savings for those who have to manage through that. We'll get to the next slide. Because we're cloud-based, we were able to introduce a lot of elements of additional ways to get better, richer evidence faster while on scene to better solve that incident, that murder, whatever we need, much quicker. So things like an app called Axon Capture. So additional photos and videos for detectives can be captured. This was a great tool during COVID where we're doing audio statements, not having the person come into the PD, but then doing it on the front porch, leaving the phone there and just having a conversation, socially distanced. That is part of this as well. So we're getting additional photos, those offload directly up into evidence.com. And then on the next slide, capturing evidence, again, from that bodega CCTV, from a suspect who may have it on their phone. We've got Axon Citizen, which will enable a very quick on-scene through the MDT in the vehicle or through a mobile app, the ability to send a text message or an email, auto-generated, phone number to an individual that says, thank you for, helping Schenectady PD. Share unanimously, if you want, or named this particular incident you have on your phone. So previously taking that phone off of that suspect, that witness, taking that and having to upload it, take their phone, give it back. Not a process that anybody wants to go through. This is a quick tool that allows you to send a text message. They pick the 1 or 2 pictures and they send it to you. It goes directly up as part of the case within a matter of minutes while you're still on scene or after the fact. So that's a really, really time savings, a couple of click tool that has been just a huge change for agencies who are not only just looking to go buy another set of cameras, another set of in-car, but really transform how they're doing and managing digital evidence, because it's not going away, and it's only becoming more burdensome in the amount of which is out there and now critical to all cases. So there's a process that agencies have where you've invested in body cameras and in-car solutions. How do we know we're getting our money's worth for this? How do we know it's being used? And typically it's a manual process. Randomly we look at videos, look at calls for service, was there videos? That's time consuming in itself. We've heard from agencies, can you automate this? And that's what Axon Conformance does. It's an analytics tool that sits over the system that'll show you in real time all your calls for service, but that's great. Show me all the calls for service where there's no corresponding body camera footage. Who did not turn their camera on? And so you'll be able to see that specifically from the reports and from the analytics that are provided through these interactive dynamic graphs. Also activation rates, I'm getting kind of in the weeds here, but are the cameras being used? Who's not leaving their camera on full shift? And who's turning it off a lot of times before they leave and between when they get back? Who's not docking their cameras? Who's not spark testing their tasers? And then it also automates the video review process. So, command needs to look at 4 videos a month. It'll automate that, send them an email, pick those 4 randomly and flow them through a review. So that is a key metric for understanding, making this investment, how do we know it's being used. And I'm going to pass it over to Doug now, just to cover a little bit around TASER 7. Again, these are deployed at a smaller number here, and along with the proposed package would be providing these as a tool to all officers.
Thank you, Ben. So as Ben mentioned, the agency currently is using our TASER 7. This is the 7th iteration of our TASER weapon. When we built TASER 7, we built it on 3 pillars. And I'll touch on each of those. We built it first on confidence, next on connectivity, and the last on community. So for confidence, we want to give our officers the best tool that we have out there to give them the confidence to do the job effectively and have the best in de-escalation, right? This TASER is the first of its kind to have 2 different types of cartridges. These cartridges can fire the TASER between 4 and 24 feet. TASERs in the past, the minimum distance to be fired was at 8 feet. And as you can imagine, generally speaking, our conversations are usually between 4 and 5 feet. So it was something that needed to be adjusted from the TASER weapon standpoint. We corrected that. From a connectivity standpoint, we finally have a rechargeable battery, right? So these batteries will last all of 5 years. It's a 5-year life expectancy for our TASER weapons. In the event that anything were to go wrong with the batteries, with the TASERs, with the docking stations, all of that is covered with our full 5-year warranty. This is also going to give each officer their own TASER, right? We supply all of the training cartridges for the full 5 years for each officer. We include all of their duty cartridges. We include, from the community standpoint, a hull suit. So that's an aftermarket hook and loop training suit. It's basically a full Velcro suit. So we're doing scenario-based training. An officer can approach, the trained officer can approach an officer with, say, like a knife or be suicidal, and we can go through all different types of drills when to use a TASER. So when the time comes, they can actually use it in the field and have more real-life examples. Another thing I'll touch on here, I think the next one is probably the VR. So we tied together our virtual reality training with our TASER 7. So the agency's current TASERs actually already work with our VR system. We have 3 different types of tools that we built into our VR system. One is your basic online-based courses, about 45 minutes of each one of our modules. The different types of modules we have vary anywhere from schizophrenia to autism to we have peer intervention, domestic violence. Our commitment to the agency is to produce one of these every single month. So they're going to get our full library of virtual reality, community-based training scenarios. Along with that, they'll also get our simulator modules. So we create one of those every 2 months, and then we dump it out to the agency. So this is more where it's instructor-led, or it can be, we have artificial intelligence that's driving this. So as you can see, the instructor has a tablet. We can change it by gender, race, have this be an assault, no assault. All of this is configurable within the system. We have virtual reality training cartridges that would turn this TASER into a VR TASER. So it takes away the functionality in the real world, makes it suitable just for the VR world. Has anybody ever used a virtual reality headset? I should have asked that. If you haven't, you're in for a real living experience. This is a great community tool too, because it gives everybody the opportunity to really see what our officers go through. And getting back to the community engagement modules, our officers they're experiencing what it's like to be autistic or schizophrenic or be hard of hearing, right? So they're experiencing that for a couple of minutes, and then we flip it, and they're the officer interacting with that person. So they're seeing it from both lenses, and it gives them that experience. It's great. It's a great community tool too. We've had agencies using it in schools, at career days, at fairs, just to give the public an idea of what the police are working with on a daily basis. But short high level on the TASER and VR side. Anybody have any questions on the TASER or VR? I kind of breezed through it, but happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
So I've heard of instances where tasers, where people have health issues, and then they've been tased and had a negative outcome.
Yeah.
So can you talk about?
Yeah, it's a great question. So during the training, there are certain areas that are more suitable to be hit with a taser. Obviously, the heart is an area you want to stay away from. The neck, the head area, a little bit below the waist. We want to split the belt line. So in a optimal tasing, we want to essentially have Ben as a subject.
Can you use him?
Yeah. Red tip and her cartridges. So I wear a headset and mess up my hair. I want to get. We're gonna fire 2 darts. The one is from the top. The one is from the bottom. I promise you, after 5 seconds, you don't even know it hit
This
yet.
camera turned on and recording, everything's done.
But I want to split the belt line, right? So one of the neat things with the taser weapons is the only area that is actually being locked up is the area between where these 2 lasers are. Everything else is a sympathetic reaction. I can tell you from experience that you feel it from your head to your toes, but after the 5 seconds are up, it's 5 seconds from the time that the trigger is pulled until the time that it stops. You really don't feel anything. I mean, a little sore from where the darts hit, but everybody's going home. The only outcomes that, and I'll bring this up because it's due to the question. So when the subject falls, we've had instances in that regard where if they fall and they hit, say, a curb or concrete, or if they're running, there's optimal situations to tase in, and there's some that could be a little questionable. But generally speaking, that's where we've seen a lot of injuries. And if it were to hit the heart, there is a slight chance, especially if they have a heart condition, but we train not to fire in certain areas. Another component of the virtual reality, this gives them the opportunity without spending, boatloads of money on cartridges to be able to fire a taser as many times as you want and to get that training in a virtual world. Also with the simulation suit, that whole suit, this gives them the opportunity to fire live cartridges in a live setting, in a training platform.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question.
So I know from previous models of the tasers, it would cycle. So you'd have that 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And then it would like maybe 2 seconds or something, I don't know what the time period is, but then it would like give another,
So you can re-energize. Yeah, we call it re-energizing. So it's gonna, I'll show you real quick here. So we have this built in, it's an automatic shut off for 5 seconds. So if I pull the trigger, probably a little hard to hear over the folks, but did you hear that little beeping sound? Now, if I wanted to re-energize, I can do that. It's gonna give another 5 seconds.
okay, but you have to do that manually.
Correct.
Automatic.
And all of that is recorded, so you can go back in evidence.com, and anytime that trigger is full, or even in performance we've been spoke about before, we have 4 different types of metrics that we record for the tasers. One is anytime it's taken off of safety. Another time is anytime the arc switch is pulled. This is the arc switch right here, so this gives the officer an opportunity to say, hey, taser, show the volts. All of that's recorded. Anytime I pull the trigger, all of that's recorded, and anytime I deploy the cartridges, that's recorded too.
You said you had 2 different types of cartridges.
Yeah.
What's the difference between
So, if I pull these out here, this is our close quarter cartridge. So that is designed to be fired between 4 and 10 feet. And then this is our standoff cartridge. They go together like Legos, so you can just piece them together.
Oh, okay.
Just the letters have to be up. But the standoff fires between 10 and 24 feet. Now I'll show you something neat with this. So if I put these in the taser, so I have my close quarter loaded in day 1. Sorry, Ben, I have to use you again. So we call this tilt select. So say I need to back up, Ben pulled out a knife. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the taser and I'm going to tilt it, do a quick 90-degree flick to my wrist, pretty much. Notice how those probes got tighter? Now if I needed to advance on Ben, I can do the same thing here. Now that I have the close quarter cartridge again.
Oh, so that switch
Switched on.
switches the cartridge itself.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we toggle, we can go back and forth between cartridge bays. We see on the back, this is our CID screen. It shows a line under which bay it's in, and then I can also see with the lasers.
Is that an actual switch or just you moving your wrist?
This is me moving around. You want to try it?
Nope.
It's pretty neat. Super easy. Just a quick backstory on this. So the taser has to be, for the most part, pretty upright, and it has to be done within a second. And we do that in the event that if an officer is running with a taser, we can't do this by accident. It has to be a forced movement. Questions?
So do you have capability with the laser to tell the distance so the cartridge shoots automatically the correct one?
Not yet. So, that's where training comes in. Generally speaking, though, if you have, agencies will load their cartridges one way or another. You're either going to load it both close quarter, both standoff, close quarter standoff, or standoff close quarter. It's, for the most part, that's the way agencies set their cartridges up. If I'm at 10 feet with a close quarter cartridge, you'll see I'm going to have 2.5 feet of probe spread, and that's going to be a pretty difficult shot. Now, I can still hit it, it can still be effective. Now, the nice thing with this taser is this has 2 bays, so in the event that I even missed, say if I missed that red one, see, or sort of pointing at Chief, but now if I missed that bottom one, right, and then I fired the second bay, but I landed the bottom one there. So I landed one on the top from the first bay, one on the bottom from the second bay. Just got me out of the laser. Sorry about that. After we just got LASIK surgery 2 weeks ago. But we'd still get a solid connection. I just need a positive and a negative. So this gives our officers another opportunity, to avoid having to use lethal force, right? This is essentially the in-between of all of that, right? We have hands-on, we have a taser, and we have lethal force. I have two cartridges in my taser if I'm able to use the taser and deploy that. Another pretty cool stat that we have that isn't spoken about a lot. So 75 to 80% of all deployments nationwide, or taser uses nationwide, are without a trigger pull. It's the presence of a taser or just displaying the electricity from the arc switch without having to pull the trigger. So it's only 1 in 5, and this is from 25 plus years of data that we collected. That we compiled there.
So I definitely applaud your agency for applying or providing the community engagement trainings. I just wanted to know, have they been approved or reviewed by any healthcare institutions, just for their authenticity?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have a whole team of subject matter experts from universities to police departments, retired sheriffs, current sheriffs, retired chiefs, current chiefs, professors from, I think, was it UCLA, I think, or a few of them. But yeah, there's a whole team of subject matter experts that are vetting all of this information out. We are eventually going to be accredited. We're able to use this for actual training to receive credit hours. It's part of the roadmap. So we just launched the simulator portion. We've had the community engagement part out for about 2 years now. The simulator, we just wanted to make sure it was perfect before we finally launched it. We launched it a couple of weeks ago out of our, we have a big public safety conference called Accelerate out in Arizona that we just officially launched it.
So this is a little bit more about kind of going back to the body cam, because I'm really impressed with the way they work together. I think that's really great tool. With the unlimited cloud storage, that would essentially say like officers can leave their body cam on their entire shift, right? Like to where previously you might have to be more mindful of that, right?
Correct. You're still technically going to use this camera and activate the camera per the policy. So the policy doesn't necessarily change because the storage program changes. But there could be an instant where full shift, I'm leaving it on because I'm just over here on the crime scene. I'm watching over something. So I am going to leave it on the entire time. And that's kind of the glory of that fixed cost, is that you can operate the camera in that instance. But typically, because we have the unlimited storage, it doesn't really change the policy as to when it has to be activated, when is it deactivated. That's all standard policy from the agency and the state. So, but yeah, you could leave it on, and whether it's the in-car, the body camera, they're all unlimited storage.
With the ALPRs, do you have capability to put those in other city vehicles, and when a hit, it goes automatically to the PD?
Yes, we do. We have that capability.
And would that be part of this package, or how much extra is that?
Yeah, so it's currently it's scoped to the patrol vehicles. We have to learn a little bit more as to what vehicle we're looking at. We want to make sure technically it has the components to support it, just then be able to include it in that. But yeah, it could be.
Our parking vehicles should put it, stuff like that. So
I'm thinking even garbage trucks, they're going around the city all the time. If there's a, accident, yes, but if there's a hit on a warrant, on a car. And do you have any data on the return on investment on those ALPRs?
In terms of being able to maximize,
Well, usage and the, the hits and the arrests, as well as maybe parking fines and things along those lines.
Yeah, it's a great question. I have to look into that. I have to look at that. It's usually very agency-specific data they keep, and it's just a matter of us asking for that. But that'll be, we can follow up on that.
And then last question is, do you have capability for when an officer exits the vehicle, the camera turns on automatically?
We do. Yeah, we call that a door trigger. That's an option. We see it a lot on canine because their hands are really consumed while they're, reaching up the dog. The door triggers are a possibility. In that case, that would work better.
Well, can you just talk about geofencing for a second? Because along those lines, detect geofence, I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, so talk about that automatic. Obviously, you can manually turn this on and off with that button. Automatic triggers to ensure we're not missing that moment through the taser, the holster, the light bar, door trigger. Because these are connected devices, we now have the ability through CAD to activate this specific to that officer. Dispatched officer agrees to the call, turn on the devices he's logged into, his body camera, his in-car. Once we're dispatched, those are actively recording. The second CAD activation would be through geofence, as Chief mentioned. So if the call for service is at 123 Main Street, we're going to put a bubble around 123 Main Street, so if you're in a quarter mile from there, coming in, responding, beep, beep, everything will then start. So we're not missing anything. We're capturing everyone's involvement from start to finish. So, yeah, there's one thing.
So Chief was talking earlier about the current body cams we have now and that they've run their life expectancy and they're no longer under warranty. You're saying a 5-year expectancy, and would the devices be under warranty for that entire 5 years?
So our typical contract is 5 years. The body camera life cycle, 2.5. After that, after 2.5 years, we start to see battery degradation in terms of not being able to support that full 12 hours with the prevent buffer. So 2.5 years on the body cameras. In-car, 5-year life expectancy. So what you'll see is that 5-year contract, 2 refreshes of the body cameras and the docks. So midway through and right towards the end. And on the in-car, you're going to see a refresh at year 5.
So what about the warranty though?
Full 5 years of warranty on everything. The refreshes, you have warranty refreshes. And in addition to that we call it the technical assurance plan, TAP for short, will also include on-site spares. So an officer's never going out without an operational camera. So we'll have spare cameras on site while these are getting swapped out.
Is that refresh, if I could, is that refresh the next generation or the same generation?
So it's going to be the same generation. The refresh is the next generation. Refresh will be next generation of the body cameras. So these are body camera 3s. The next one will be 84, 85, and then in-car 3 will be 4 will be the refresh.
Does your software integrate with the ESRI system in order to have it automatically downloaded and put into that?
Which system?
ESRI, GIS.
I'm not familiar with that.
It would integrate with the Pulsium system, which integrates with.
Yeah.
So in order to retract data, we could retract it from the Pulsium system. I'm assuming some.
Yeah.
I know we'll get backwards, but it's.
Okay, I think this is the last one. So you were saying that there's a mechanism for a citizen where, they can get a text message, which is like, for lack of a better term, like a link for them to send in photos or videos, something that they witnessed. Now, that link operates one way, correct? Like, in other words, like, that link and clicking that link isn't giving permission to access that citizen's only the photos or videos that they...
Completely one way, and it expires. So it's from a generic, 672 number, will make it up. They'll get it, they'll click that link, and provide that evidence. They can't respond to the officers on open communication. It will then, expire and no longer be usable once they.
What happens to all the video and data that's uploaded into your system if, let's say, after the contract is over, we decide to go a different vendor? What happens to that?
Yeah, great question. So everything we do is MP4, so nothing's proprietary. You own your evidence. All of your evidence is yours. And so you've got a couple of ways you can both download it. So if you've got another area you want to bring that into, you can do that. That's at no cost. We also provide our API tools to you. So you've got another cloud provider. You can, with some simple IT background through our tutorial, move it that way. The third, and that's at no cost. The third option is if you say, Axon, can you help us roll up your sleeves? What would it cost for X amount of days to help us move it from here to here? That would be the cost option there.
I have a question about your taser.
Yeah.
Really more about officer training. So what does the training look like? And is there something, once they're trained, that you give them a test, basically to know that they know how to use it properly?
No, absolutely. So training is once per year. For the Taser 7, over the course of the 5 years, they'll at the minimum have to fire 28 training cartridges. And they also have to do a written, and it's a portion back on, we call it Axon Academy. So it's about 4 hours of coursework. That is in addition to firing the Taser cartridges. It's about a full day.
And so our current officers would get that too?
Yeah, everybody that carries a taser has to do this once per year.
Okay.
In order to be able to carry a taser. Now, the nice thing is with that VR system, that's in addition to all of this too, so they can just throw that headset on and be in a variety of different situations where it could be from a traffic stop to a drug overdose, to, it's in there, and it could be, even at a fire, we have different levels for the firing range. We have an actual range, then we have different types of threats that could be involved to raise the skill level that would be needed with the taser weapons.
Thank you. Did someone else have another? Mr. Williams?
So Councilman Patrick and I had the opportunity to attend your brief training earlier, and definitely appreciate you providing that and allowing us access. I wanted to know if Chief Clifford or ACC, or if you're able to talk to, so I think this is an important component of it, the administrative time that's saved, where we traditionally think of police officers as responding to events, but definitely there is a workload of paperwork that's attributed, and how this will help with some of that workload.
I'll touch on the taser part real quick here. So on every previous generation taser, it was just like your cell phone. To do an update, we had to plug it in. Our recommendation was to do quarterly updates. If there was ever an incident with a taser where there was a malfunction, first thing our tech support team is going to ask is when was the last time you updated the firmware or software, right? Just like your phone, if you don't do it, if you don't update software on the computer, it starts to be a little wonky the way it works, right? So the nice thing with our taser weapons, the new ones, there's no more plugging in and doing any of that. With the rechargeable battery, when they're put in the docking station, we're getting automatic software and firmware updates, and they're done. Our recommendation is to dock these once per month, so they're getting 12 updates per year. So it's always going to be optimal weapon health for our weapons.
On the body camera side, I'll lump the body camera and the fleet in there as well. Traditionally, when we go with technology, it's always additional work and time. And so what we've done is kind of with this and our software, as part of the package, is there are areas in which we give that officer time back. So for example, this camera, after a traffic stop interaction, when the officer walks back to the vehicle and has evidence.com up, he can see the transcript of what unfolded. So he can better understand exactly what was said, what he said, and what the suspect said, the driver. But then it also provides them the ability to talk to the camera, or they can talk to the MDT to write the report. So typically this is a process where they write out what happened, what was said, when they arrived, what they saw, what they smelled. They can talk to the MDT. It's going to transcribe what they're saying. They copy and paste it, put it into the record, and they're done. So we're talking about saving a ton of time. The auto tagging feature, typically that's got my body camera, I got to tag that, got my in-car, I got to tag that, and then the backseat video, that tag that is rolled. This lumps it together, and then it gets auto tagged. Auto tagging saves about $200 per month per officer. From our case studies on that, that tagging piece, and then it really gets into the time to redact. So an hour's worth of footage takes 8 hours to redact to the point where we can hand it over. The AI tools have really brought that down to 2 hours to be able to fully redact that. And then it's really around the evidence sharing elements, where you're able to share these large case files without going to all these different silos and different codecs and burning and DVDs and thumb drives and then driving them around, where it's brought in any format, brought in here, third-party evidence, create the case, right-click, and you can share it inside the agency with the VA, with the state police, seamlessly from anywhere you can access the internet.
So, around your the virtual reality trainings and those scenarios, I know that Chief has been working hard to make sure that officers are going through anti-bias training, racism training. Do you know any of the partners that you're working with through the university have? Has there been any intentional development, as far as I heard you say earlier, you could switch race, switch gender. Is there any intentionality around not reinforcing or perpetuating existing biases that happen that can have disproportionate outcomes?
Doug's on the cusp of that with the taser and the ER.
Yeah, to answer your question, we're constantly coming out with new modules, and one of the nice things with the system, we're taking feedback directly from our customers and creating these modules based on what they're asking to be presented, right? So I'll bring up a couple of years ago, there was a lot of protests and seeing situations like that. We were able to create a module, 30 days, we had one out, based just on that, right? And the same thing with virtual reality is current events pop up. It could be, peer-to-peer is another one. And I don't know if you noticed on the slide before, but we have brought to 3 now, peer-to-peer intervention ones. So just to kind of keep it moving in we changed it up, so it's a little different module. One thing to note on the community engagement side too, so these are real people in real world settings. The simulator side is, they're all animated. Cool thing with it though is we're able to create literally unlimited outcomes with it. We're on the community engagement side, these are fixed outcomes. It's kind of like choose your own adventure, if you will. It'll pause and you'll have 3 different outcomes that you can choose, and each one is going to bring you down a different path. So each one of those community engagement modules has about 30 different ways it can play out. And they're all 8 to 10 minutes long. So, an officer could throw a headset on during a roll call as they're waiting in line to do taser research, a number of situations. But yeah, to your point though, our library is constantly expanding and we're trying to hit on some of the most important topics right now. Obviously, this is going to be one of them for sure. So, not out yet, but probably within, I'd say within the next 6 months for sure. They're pumping these up pretty quickly. We get an email every single week with our new hires, and all of these engineers on our VR team are based up in Seattle, kind of like the tech capital of the country anymore, right? And half of these new hires are on our VR team, so it's just growing at a rapid pace right now.
Mr. Bellamy?
So what are your camera capabilities with drones and/or remote control vehicles? And also, do your cameras pick up heat signatures?
So the body cameras and the in-car cameras and the rear cameras do not pick up heat signatures.
But what about for drones or
Our
the
drone
remote
capabilities
control?
are the latest generation of that. So we've got partnership with DJI, as well as there are 2 other Photokite and Skydio drones. So the 3 main drone vendors, we are law enforcement premier provider for that. On top of those best-in-breed technologies that include infrared FLIR, rapid deployed, small rapid deployed drones, or larger drones. We provide many options on the hardware side. We layer on top of that our drone sense software. And so it feeds and uploads and live streams directly to evidence.com on the back end. So it's just another large area of digital evidence that's right now very hot for search and rescue, for patrol, that when you have that over a protest in body cameras, you can really see where things are moving, get ahead of them, all on our Axon Respond, which is where the live streaming playback is.
I'm thinking deploying it into a building, pick up a heat signature, find out where maybe there's weapons.
We're doing that today
Okay.
with our solution. So that's absolutely capability.
Any other questions? Pete, you want to wrap it up?
Yes, so one of the reasons why we're here today with this presentation is that on an individual basis, body cameras, in-car videos, training, we've already come to the council, we've already spoken to the mayor about funding for each individual one. Bringing this all together under one platform, the mayor and I spoke about transparency as being a part of our police reform commitment that we agreed, that the council passed over a year and a half, or about a year and a half ago. So that's the reason why we're here today discussing this, is that we want to be fully transparent about where we're going with this technology and why. And I really appreciate all the questions and the engagement here and any feedback that we can receive. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thanks,
coming.
everybody. Thank you, everyone.
If you get out in time, I'll come over and try that taser.
Okay.
All right,
Remember the video?
so.
You want Chief Seaver to be available as your driver?
I think he already volunteered.
I worked for mayor a long time, I can tolerate a lot of pain.
Nice.
Mr. Motivera, are you going to be needing?
Yeah, so can we do finance and government ops? And,
Yes, okay. So Mr. Motivera has to leave as well, so first we'll do finance, then we're going to move to government ops, because then there'll be only 2 of us on the committee. So go ahead, Mr. Motivera.
Call to order Finance Committee. The first item is the 2022 budget amendment for the fire department. Chief Marino.
Swallow it.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Don't get nervous.
So here tonight to speak to everyone about our arson division. Just a little background, the arson division right now is a 4-person division. There's a deputy chief, 2 lieutenants, and a firefighter. All of them either are or will be full-fledged arson investigators. So when we get a fire now, we'll call in one of the arson investigators, and 2 of them are current. One's a firefighter that'll come in, and the other one is a lieutenant. There are times when that firefighter needs to make some decisions, and it's not at his authority level. So we may have to call in the lieutenant or the deputy chief to make those decisions. So we propose to change that firefighter's position's title from a firefighter and make that position a lieutenant's position. It makes sense, it gives that person the authority to do the investigation without additional help. There are times he still will need to bring in another arson investigator, depending on the scope of the investigation. Currently, the person that's in the firefighter's position's been there a good 12 years, if not longer. Highly qualified. He does, besides the arson, part of his duties are special operations. Now, when we make this position, it'll have to go up for promotion. That person is on the list, he's number 1. Not saying he's going to be promoted, because we have other people that we have to interview also. But the person doing the job now has been doing it a long time, highly qualified, he's up for promotion, maybe he makes the promotion. The main thing we're asking is that we change that position from a firefighter to a lieutenant. Will save us a little money. Finance informs me that it's budget neutral right now, so it's not going to be an impact. That's what I'm here to propose.
Chief, under the revised budget, filled number of months, can you address the 0.5 and 0.25 position?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Can someone just show?
Sure. Here we have this, it's 1.5, and then this changes to 2.5, is that because of half a year or whatever time frame? You see, there's 2 here, now you move to 2.5.
Yeah, I believe that's because it's half a year. Yes. Because we're already into the year, it's June by the time this happens. So there is between the lieutenant and the firefighter, there's a differential. It's an 8% differential. So that position now will receive more money than he would have as a firefighter.
Okay.
Being it's only a half a year, that's why there's a differential. But speaking with finance director, we feel that by making that person a lieutenant, not having to call in additional help, there'll be some savings in overtime. And we're not talking a lot of money.
It should say 0.5, not 5.
0.5, that's what it says.
Total of 3.
Yes. Any questions?
I'll move it.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
The next item is the 2022 budget reappropriation for the Code Enforcement Department. Mr. Lam.
Thank you, Council. I'm proposing to put on a full-time assistant building inspector for code enforcement. Currently, we're running an assistant that's part-time, 3 days a week, and not here from November until January. He's actually just put in his resignation, so we really need to have a backup for my position, and here somebody that's responsible here when I'm not available. It's budget neutral.
Go ahead, please.
So you're moving someone from a code enforcement officer to this position, is that correct?
We're going to look at the best candidates, but
Right,
that's what we're
well, I didn't mean a specific person, I just meant generally. So how does, first of all, are there currently 10 code enforcement officers? Do you currently, are those positions all filled?
Now there should be 14, but no, there's 6.
Okay, so there's 6 currently. So losing one will do what to the person who, the staff of code enforcement out there doing the work? I mean, they're all doing work, but, who actually go in and
So this person will actually be out, he'll be working till we become full capacity. They'll still be doing other work as a code officer, but assuming responsibilities and moving up into a managerial position until we fill, make the appropriate fills.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you all, appreciate it.
The next item is allocating 20,000 of CDBG/CV3 funding to Feed Albany Inc. Mayor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This request that was brought forth to me were Feed Albany. It's an acronym that evolved out of COVID, where the kitchen in Albany was preparing meals for communities across the Capital District. Some of the information is detailed in the narrative that's provided. The program in Schenectady will run out of money roughly at the end of this month. And so the $20,000 is an amount that would get it through the end of the year, allowing them to again continue at the level that they've been doing for the last year and a half.
That's right, yeah. Go ahead.
At some point, we're going to get a more inclusive name.
I'm sorry?
At some point, we'll get a more inclusive name.
They are looking to rebrand that.
Hi, I'm
Can you come to the next slide?
my name is Matthew Peter. I'm president of the board of Feed Albany. We were asked to come to Schenectady about a year and a half ago by Schenectady Police Department because we had established this program at the very beginning of COVID. To specifically, it started off with bar and restaurant employees who were laid off. We were very worried about that. I'm actually the county legislator who represents Lark Street in Albany. So I met with some restaurant owners and we started preparing meals so that those who are very dependent on daily income while they're waiting for unemployment weren't going hungry. At the same time, we started hearing about people at least in Albany, the Albany Housing Authority, where people were stuck indoors and couldn't get out to get food. They couldn't get nutritious meals, and we wanted to focus on that. And then about a year into our work, and after we were established 501c3, we were reached out to by Schenectady PD, and have been working with them on 2 different styles. One is a curbside program. We were already doing deliveries, right? So we're based out of Albany, but we were making deliveries specifically with Albany Med's Cancership Survivorship Program for those who are suffering from disabilities, who need meals. And so we expanded the program, and we also are connected with Schenectady Community College with their culinary program, and we work with them. Union College students help us deliver the meals, and obviously the Schenectady Police Department is key. Basically, we got hit sort of in a triple factor, which is why we're sort of asking some of our partner communities for help. One, when we started, we were mostly volunteer. We had volunteer we have volunteer cooks, we have massive donations of food from Cisco and things of that nature. And then since then, we now pay, we'll still pay, we have to pay for all the food, and food prices have gone up about 20%. We do pay a part-time chef. We are obviously a volunteer board, there's no payment there, but we basically have 3 part-time employees, a part-time chef, a part-time executive director who helps with our filing and our board stuff, and our part-time volunteer coordinator who helps with distribution of meals and getting it out there. So we're a pretty bare bones organization, but we've had to make the choice that as donations have decreased, both financially and in food, we've had to make the difficult decision that we have to start going to a core mission of how we can continue doing this for as long as possible. Because the need, specifically amongst food insecurity, is not going away. It's just that it's not on people's mind as much. So this is going to allow us to move forward, but Madam Chair, to your point, the long-term goal is to have each of these sort of sub-branches start being independent if we can establish it. So there might be like a Feed Capital Region or Feed Albany umbrella, but there would be a Feed Schenectady as long as we can get our feet under us In the short term, we've applied to Senator Schumer's office for federal grants, and we've been looking to work with both the Schenectady Police Department, the mayor, and obviously the Common Council, that if we're successful in establishing a presence to make it long-term viable. The reason we came here is we also get approximately $50,000 in federal grants annually from the city of Albany, and we thought that was a way that we could continue doing this in a sustainable way while we also fundraise and try.
Thank you. Question?
Any question? Go ahead, please.
I just want to, say that it's been such a phenomenal success, the program, and I think that Councilwoman DeToro, you have firsthand experience.
Been to
did you?
almost all the events.
I think you've been doing it every week, right, with these guys? But just thank you for, everybody that stepped up to the plate at the beginning, 2.5 years ago, and thank you to our police force and volunteers.
Heavy lifting. That's it. We're just there to help out.
It's a team effort, though. I think since the starting, we handed out 600,000 meals.
Yeah, it's
We're
amazing.
about 100,000 a year still, even after COVID peak, but it's something we want to continue doing for as long as possible.
Well, it's just, such a great example of people just identifying a need and immediately, responding to it instead of, having to figure it out and, that kind of thing. It's just been phenomenal.
That's what we're gonna have. We're gonna get out there.
Go ahead, please.
Thanks.
Yes.
So every week we go, we set up the meals, different setup locations. There's certain locations that are definitely more warranted as far as need than other locations. In front of Vale Cemetery has been one of our biggest outlets there. And then Christina always brings, there's all kinds of fresh produce and bread. And then we even have Mike from St. Luke's Food Pantry. Every week he brings us food and goodie snacks. And then Christine takes some of those back to Feed Albany. And then the Bethesda House, we drop off meals there. And whatever's left, the officers bring down to Summit Towers just to put in the community room. And they make announcements there. So it definitely gets around the city, all the food. Yes.
Exactly.
And the kids love the police officers. So when the officers are there and they come up and they talk to them and show them the lights on the cars.
Sticker badges. They love sticker badges.
But there's definitely a need in our community for this. So it's sometimes 145 meals a week that we do. But
I think we're, just in Schenectady alone, I think we're up over 6,500 meals so far that we've handed out. And that program I think we started out with 9 people going through chemo and disabilities, like just general disabilities that they couldn't get out. Anywhere from immunocompromised to, like I said, chemo radiation therapies, and that's up to over 80 some odd meals that we're just personally delivering out to those individuals in the city.
Yeah, it's approximately 125 to 150 meals curbside, and then approximately 80 meals every week to those individuals who are, as we talked about, compromised individuals and things of that nature.
and that's how I first started, was just delivering to them to the people, and they invite you in, they want to talk, you just sit with them for a little bit.
That's an important part of it.
Yeah. They await the coming. Others are like, just leave them on the porch. Cover it with a towel.
Yeah.
Okay. But thank you.
It really is, just to see people's faces and just to interact with the community, it's huge. That alone, I think, is well worth it. It really, it would be a pity to see this fall by the wayside.
Go ahead, please.
So definitely, I know we're talking about the contribution that the city can make, but I don't know if you reached out to the school district. Definitely Superintendent Soler is actively working on implementing a community schools model, where this very much, I think, could be something that they can undertake. So I don't know if you have established communication, but I would definitely recommend that.
We haven't yet, but we are working on that as part of the next step as we expand. We want to sort of make sure, see who our partners are to start with, where we can be next year as we're getting these grants, more of a cash flow issue until those grants come in. And then we'll be looking to say, okay, one of the big ones we have in Albany is the City Housing Authority, and they help direct distribute. The school districts are a big one that we're looking looking to. We work with some of the charter schools specifically, some of the reach out, as well as the City of Albany Public Schools. So it's definitely something we'd be interested in.
Christine also she has COVID, so she can't be here, unfortunately. But she has reached out to the Senator Tedisco and told me about the Wright family. So they're reaching out to them and to Schenectady Foundation as well. So they are working on that.
Any other question? Thank you for what your organization has been doing. We'll continue to support.
I'll move it.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion to adjourn? Oh, sorry, we'll recess finance.
Yes, recess finance.
We have a motion to recess finance.
We're going to put.
Do Monday night.
Motion.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Can you call government ops to order, please?
Okay, I would like to call government ops to order. One item, discussion filling vacant position on the city workforce. Ms. Porterfield.
Thank you. So we had talked about this a few weeks ago, and we came up with some things that we were going to do, part of which was working with Mary Ann and HR to make sure we knew what the job opportunities were, which we have done. And she actually was at the Green Market the second Sunday handing out applications. They've created a flyer with a QR code letting people know, the jobs are available. And as you heard earlier, our code department is down people, and that's just happening all over the city. But not only that, I was watching the news where there's airlines that are grounding flights because they just don't have enough staff. So this is not something that just is happening locally. And so I just thought we should need to talk about how we could address that. This particular topic has come up numerous times in these conversations, so I thought we should bring it to this table. Currently, if you're a resident if you want to work for the city of Schenectady, you have to actually reside in the city of Schenectady. And so the question comes up, do we expand that to the county? We actually have lost people to other municipalities within Schenectady County because you don't have to live in Rotterdam to work in Rotterdam. We've had people leave who work for the city to work in Rotterdam because they didn't, there may have been other reasons, but that stipulation wasn't there, so it didn't make them stay in Schenectady. So in talking with staff, just to be completely transparent, conversation's been brought up more than one time, so I thought it was something that we should discuss and talk about how we can make sure that we get our workforce back up to what should be in terms of considering people having residency within the county and not just within the city. The county itself did something similar to this a few years ago, and one of the stipulations that they did have was that if, let's say, a person tested and all things being equal, that the person, and one lived in the city and one lived in the county, that the person, of course, that lives in the city would be their chosen candidate. So I just kind of opened that up for discussion. I'm not even sure what it takes to get us there, but I think it's something that we really want to consider, and I'm sure that the mayor has made an opinion on that, but as I said, it's been brought to me numerous times, and so thought it's something we should discuss if we're really serious about making sure that we be able to employ people that we need to employ. So.
Mayor McCarthy, is the residency board functioning at this point in time?
There is not a residency board per se. It is if there's an issue that comes up, I appoint the residency board and convene a hearing or review on that status.
Is this something that you can consider on a case-by-case basis? If there an application in and somebody is considered to be suitable for a position, to waive that residency?
It has been done in the past on a case-by-case basis. The bulk one was done when we took the wastewater treatment back in-house, where farmed out and Veolia had it, so there wasn't a residency requirement. Brought those people in, they weren't held to the residency requirement. Since then, the only one that I have gone for a waiver was Judge Idens when I appointed him Public Safety Commissioner. He was a little bit older. Like life, lived in Glenville and was not interested in moving, but served with distinction. I did go for the residency waiver on that. I've not done that for Commissioner Devine. So I'm not sure he technically meets the need because he's only part-time. And again, but would look at it on a case-by-case basis.
Just, so thank you to whoever updated the website. Most of the positions are there, so thank you, whoever did it.
Well, Marianne made sure the information was there.
So that was good, and I shared it to all my contacts, and I encourage everyone, please go on there and share it, getting hits, and I'm encouraging people to submit their resume directly for each of the positions, so.
Agreed, but my point really is us do this overall, not by a case-by-case basis. That means every single person that that wants to be employed, the mayor has to look at every single application, every single person that doesn't live in the city but lives in the county. And I'm not sure what the criteria is in terms of the case-by-case. Well, one reason was that the mayor just gave that the person was older, their wife didn't want to move. Makes sense. You don't want to sell your house if you're at the place where you're going to be retiring in a couple of years anyway. So, but I just really want us to consider it on a more broad term.
So the question is, have we been receiving resume from residency outside of Schenectady?
We on a routine basis get applications for individuals who do not live within the city of Schenectady. Current code allows me to appoint anyone independent of their place of residency, but they're required to move within the city within 6 months of appointment.
Sorry, go ahead, please.
So I think when we've heard this instance multiple times, just tonight to reference something that was recent with Chris talking about the code enforcement having six officers out of 14. I don't know how you can routinely expect them to perform to the highest degree when just they're that understaffed. I want to be aware that there may be other considerations that I'm not aware of as a new council member, but to me, I would either recommend temporarily suspending it, at least until we can get our departments either fully staffed or whether we can identify departments that are in critical standing, but of getting them to a standpoint where they are functional, whether we define like a 75%, what have you, or permanently deleting it or permanently doing away with it. And the only reason why I recommend that is it seems that we are trending in a direction with staffing that is not in line with things that have previously worked. I don't think that this is an instance where Schenectady isn't being promoted as a ideal living situation, and I recognize that our city is making efforts to present itself as an ideal destination for families, but there doesn't seem to be in place a effective mechanism that has a pipeline to staff these departments. And the one thing that I would hate to see is the exiting to continue, and then we'd be at one or potentially departments that are not staffed.
So discussion to Mr. Cole. Mr. Cole, if you move to suspend this requirement, do we need a call for public hearing?
Well, if you're looking to temporarily change the code,
Yes.
because that's essentially what it is, yes, you would. I mean, the current mechanism in place for somebody who doesn't reside in Schenectady would be to seek a waiver as provided in the city code.
Go ahead, please.
So what would residency, thank you, Carl, for all that, but what would, that do to our schools and our community? And, would we just be a destination to come and work and everybody leaves right after work? I don't know. I don't agree with it, but I think we're in a position that everyone across America is in, and probably everyone's departments are low. I don't know, but again, we want to build our home sales and our schools and our community. Like downtown Albany, it's nothing.
No, I agree with you. We are in a situation that people are all over. that's why people are looking different ways to handle it. And so there are places that who have opened up, like for the Housing Authority, let me give you an example. Before, you only could live in Schenectady County. They've changed it now that if you live in contiguous counties, you can work for them. So because it's a problem that's ongoing, we have to approach it in a different way. And I understand what you're saying. I'm not sure if I have really the same concern. I don't anticipate people will move out of the city and all of our school districts will go on. And in terms of the school district, in order to work for the school district, you do not have to live in the city. You don't even have to live in the county. So we already have people that come here to teach in our schools that they teach. And I'm going to say I know a lot of them that are still committed to our students, et cetera. They come, they teach in the schools, and then they go home because we just didn't have enough of a pool to draw from in terms of our school district. So I think we're almost in the same situation now.
So just a follow-up on the application some of the application that we have for non-resident. Can consideration be given to look into them and apply the waiver?
We'd like to,
If they're qualified?
yeah, as they're qualified, we'd like to bring them to the mayor, but a lot of times, because of the 6 months rule that we have, people automatically will tell us, well, I only have like 2 more years to pay in my house, I'm not gonna move in the city in 6 months. So, we have to disqualify them because they tell us up front they're not coming in. But what we need to do is cast a bigger net around the continuous counties and stuff like that, so that we can get the best possible workers that apply for each position. The city of Schenectady, we've been trying, like you said, we have all those job openings, and we always go out and we try to tell everybody about these jobs, but we just can't get the right qualifications to meet with them. But if we can cast a bigger net, we'll be able to get more applications and more people in. I also believe that people who do not live in the city right now start working in the city and seeing what the city has to offer. They eventually will move into the city, but to be an option to get them here first is through employment. And like you said, it's throughout the whole country, employment is hard to find. So we're making our employment status even smaller by casting that small net right in our little city. So we need to make it bigger to get better employees.
Maybe for Andrew, so what about the employees that already live in the city? I mean, would they be able to move out of the city now if something like that came about?
Presumably, if we were to remove the restriction that somebody who's employed by the city or somebody who seeks to be employed by the city doesn't have to live in the city, then yes, the potential is there for that.
Go ahead, please.
It's an extremely hard thing to administer. I firmly believe in the residency requirement. There is a provision, most people when they are hired pre-sign a resignation if they move out of the city. If I enforce those, your staffing levels would be critical. Today we get by.
Yeah, I'm sure that but without that being there, that means that would even be a concern, because as long as they're in the county. I just want to be clear. I'm not talking about other counties. I'm not talking about somebody moving to Albany and still. I'm talking about expanding at least to the county and see how we do in terms of getting more employees in, as Mr. Ferrari said, just cast a bigger net. So talking about the county of Schenectady. You said we already have people who are in that situation. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes, they don't live in the city, but maintain a paper residency or in other ways have created a charade that complies with the current residency requirement.
Go ahead, Ms. Lowry.
So, one of the major criticisms of the school district is our teachers aren't living there. And they take our tax money and they leave. And that doesn't mean they're not dedicated to students, but they're not dedicated to our community. And that's a detriment. Similarly, we could have a situation where our workers do leave. There needs to be something in place, if we're going to do this, where there's skin in the game. If you're living in the city, you're contributing to the community, you're contributing to the tax base, if you're not living here, then there should be some sort of, I don't know, $8,000, $10,000 less pay or something to compensate for that.
An incentive to.
And there needs to be an incentive to move here and be part of our community. That gets the umbrella wider, but it also puts the playing ground at an even keel for the workers who are in our city and are dedicated. So any new employees that don't live in the city should have some sort of penalty. And I understand there's contractual issues related to that, but I firmly believe that that needs to be in place.
Go ahead, please.
So although I agree with some segments of what you're saying, I don't think financially penalizing people to be involved in the community leads to long-term successful impacts. Part of the reason why my family moved back is because we wanted to. And I will entirely bet on the fact that the ambitions of Mayor McCarthy, the ambitions of Superintendent Soler will yield people wanting to buy into the fact that Schenectady is a thriving community. And I think if we are then compared to other cities and someone chooses somewhere else, we need to honestly look introspectively and say, is there anything we could have realistically done better? And if it's no, then accepting that. But whenever we have our parades downtown, whenever we have our Sunday events in downtown Schenectady, I'm asking people candidly, do you live in our community? And when I hear no, I thank them for patronizing our businesses and let them know that we do have houses, that we do have safe and successful neighborhoods, and they should choose us. And I think that that is the aim that we need to take on.
So I just want to follow back and just to clarify, so waiving the residency, is that for 6 months only? Is that for a period of 6 months only? Waiving residency, or that is overall?
No, if I hire somebody, they have 6 months to move into the city.
But if you were to waive, if they were to live out of town and you waive the residency?
I would have to convene the residency review board. They would have to vote a waiver. The city council can change the actual code.
And that waiver doesn't have a limitation?
Well, depending on whatever you enacted.
No, currently, what we have currently, if you were to waive the residency, is there a timeline?
It's permanent.
Is that permanent?
I believe that it's permanent when it's granted.
Yeah.
I suppose the residency review board could do a limited waiver, but the ones that have been done on a permanent basis.
A section of code to review, if I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The section of code to review on this is 87-6.1 and the subsections. It goes through, the procedures and the considerations for granting a waiver.
Yeah, I personally think that we should look at the waiver based on the application coming in, and if they're non-residency, we can look at the application. If they're qualified, look at waiving the residency, because we need to increase the workforce and we need to do something. Go ahead, sorry.
A couple of issues. I think, and just to twist that around, I think the idea of giving an incentive to someone that's living in the city versus penalizing somebody that's not. So I think I hear what you're both saying. I like the idea of giving an incentive to someone, and many of us have that at different workplaces over the years, where you look at health insurance, for example. Are you going to accept the health insurance? Okay, or if you don't accept the health insurance, hey, we'll give you an extra $2,000 in your salary because it's saving the organization. So, there's ways to play around with that as well. I personally feel the same way. You want people to live here. We want people to recognize what a fabulous place this is to live, and I think that more and more people are figuring that out. I would like to know whether, because we all have identified that the workforce issue in our country is just, why are people not applying for all the jobs? There's millions of jobs available, and folks just aren't even stepping up to the plate to try to apply for the jobs. So I guess I'd want to dig a little deeper and know, is it because somebody doesn't want to come and live in Schenectady, or is it that we're just not getting applications in general,
It's hard to tell, because when people see that you have to live in Schenectady, they don't even apply.
Okay. So we wouldn't have high data on that, actually.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's one thing I wanted to say. And I also think that I could see a difference between, for example, an $18 an hour, person who's going to be working on a garbage truck versus someone that's coming to work in our corporation counsel office at a much higher salary. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm just trying to bring up issues that I think would all have to be considered in this as a broader topic. That, I think flexibility around someone that's making $18 an hour and maybe doesn't want to move here to make $18 an hour versus,
Someone at a higher
else.
salary?
So I think there's a lot of levels. It's like peeling the onion back in terms of this issue.
Go ahead, please.
I know that currently, if there's someone that we really need to fill at a higher level, that the mayor is willing to, and has considered people, just because if we can't find someone, I don't even want to name a position, but a particular position that requires a certain skill set.
Yes.
That person, probably mayor would consider us, like, there was a woman who did work for our assessment, and she didn't live in the city, and I believe she had a waiver at some point, because she brought the skill set that we needed to the table. So I think it's kind of like a little bit different than what you're saying, actually, because the people with the higher salary with the a specific skill set are more inclined to be able to get the waiver as the people at the $18 an hour, because it's a skill set that may be difficult to find within the city. I'm saying we need both, though, just so you know.
We clear, I think we were talking about somebody working in the assessor's office, appointed by a prior administration who did not have a waiver, and I did not reappoint that person.
Go ahead, please.
Have we ever considered, I don't know, but raising our pay scale?
We have.
Oh, we have, okay.
Maybe we should consider it again. Thanks for bringing that up. But
Just talking about incentive, I think in our last year's budget, there is a discretionary line towards the mayor's budget to use as an incentive to attract,
the mayor's looking at you like, what?
I hope we still have that line, Mayor McCarthy. Fully funded.
Not to get into specific things, but I did attempt to hire an individual, used all that money and put some other money on the table, and still was not able to hire the person.
Yeah, part of that money, yeah.
So does that mean that we should be looking, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead,
does that mean
please.
we should be looking at our salaries?
There are other factors
Okay.
at play there.
All right.
It's,
All right. So, I think it's something we really should consider. Currently, our police officers don't have to live in the city. Our chief does. So, the mayor's our chief, he lives in the city. So, so I think that it's something that we should consider if we want to really build our workforce back. And to your point, Ms. Patrick, I agree that we should incentivize people that already live here. Maybe not penalize, incentivize. So maybe we would increase the salary for people that already live here, and the other people would just come in on the current thing. So I think that it's a lot to think about, but I definitely believe it's something we should think about to figure out how to increase our workforce and get people here.
I think we can do that. Go ahead, please.
Just in general information, my last conversation with Paul Milton at Ellis Medicine, Ellis, and that was, 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, they were down 500 positions on a workforce that is 3,200 normal staffing. And that's across the board. So it's higher level medical people, it's administrative people, lab technicians, everybody. So again, it's not unique, it's just what the conversation has been. It's a national phenomenon now where there are a lot of openings out there. How do you match people up to it and create that workforce development that gives us people to fill the slots? And a lot of things that Ron Gardner's doing, they're not quick, but I believe they're going to be long-term solutions that'll give us quality and highly skilled people that are motivated to do the right thing and be part of the bigger ecosystem that we've all talked about this narrative here, the good things that are happening in Schenectady now, and we want to continue.
I think we need quick now, though.
Give me any names and we're,
So, I mean, I think even if it's temporarily, but we definitely need to, and as I know that it's happening all over the country. So the question for me becomes, what do we do to remedy it for us? And, how do we look at that? So Ellis is another employer, and of course, they're in the city, but they
if
people.
everybody in the city council could just give me one name, so I'll get 7 resumes.
So then our code department will be filled, and then what about the other side?
Well, no, not just codes, I'll restrict you. You could give me a police officer, firefighter, code officer.
The police and fire don't have to live in the city.
But they also have a penalty for not living in the city.
Firefighters are exempt by state law.
But the penalty is only for 5 years.
5 years, yeah, for a police officer.
So,
Not forever.
So, Ms. Porterville, what way forward?
well, I'm definitely want to look at the code 87-6.1 to see, about that. But I think that we really should really give some consideration, even if we do it on a temporary basis. Or if we say, I mean, I know that it's up to the mayor to interview everybody. So is there, I guess we need to have that discussion with you in terms of if everything was equal and residency was the only issue, if that would just be someone that you would be willing to hire. I think that that's important for us to have that conversation as well. So, and to your point, I don't know what that does for people who live in the city if they want to move out of the city. So I think it's a lot to consider, but I strongly believe we need to consider it because our workforce is down. And, all the departments that I've spoken with has, how they're running on a shoestring, basically, and everybody's understaffed. So what can we do to remedy that, to make sure that our staff is, just not so overworked? So I will look at the code, and Mr. Colden, I'll have those discussions with you, and then we can bring it back to the council what's currently here. And if it means the residency board needs to be called, well, definitely, we would have to work on that.
Any other questions on this? So we'll bring it back in 2 weeks?
Be back in 2 weeks.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. I have to leave, sorry.
Oh, okay. I really don't like you.
So I'd like to call to order the Public Safety Committee. We have 2 items that will call us. The first is a discussion reducing city limit to 25 miles an hour, and I'll be talked to by Councilman Patrick.
Thank you. Well, as you know, the State Assembly and Senate have passed what we asked for. I think last year it was that Mr. Palomeni had brought forward, I think in the last couple of years, you brought forth something 2 years ago, and then last year it was to go to the state to ask that we would get the ability to be able to lower the speed limit within the city to 25 miles per hour. So although that's now awaiting the governor's signature for that, and I don't know when that might happen, but I asked to meet with the mayor and the chief and our assistant chief and Mr. Coluccio last week so that we could start talking about some of the issues that would be involved in reducing the speed limit to 25 miles per hour. We've certainly heard from our residents, whether it be the SUN, the United Neighborhood Association, or just, I'm sure, it's definitely, I'm getting calls. I got emails and calls today, but every week probably all of us are hearing from residents about the speeding issues that are happening in the city as a major quality of life issue and a safety issue, obviously, for our pedestrians as we start to think about, I shouldn't say start to think about, but as we continue to think about making the city more walkable and more bikeable. This plays into that safety aspect as well. So I'm bringing it forward. I would like to recommend that we actually do reduce the speed limit to 25 miles per hour within the city. Also, we do have the assistant chief and we have Mr. Coluccio here who could speak to their side of what they think regarding
the signage and everything that would go into that change, as well as the enforcement issues. So if we could maybe ask them to come forth and
Sure. So yes, we did we've been keeping database of signs since about 1999. An actual database. We have files for all the city streets, but in the database, and there's been about 141 30-mile-an-hour speed limits in that database, installed, repaired, replaced. So if we added an estimate to that, maybe we're talking 200 signs that would have to be replaced someplace in that vicinity, because you know you're going to get requests for additional signs, over what we have now. Bless you. So we're estimating around $40 a sign or something around there. Prices go up horribly and take forever to get. I think we're probably, if we were going to do this, I think we're talking 3 to 4 months at least. Maybe around $10,000. That's what I'm estimating for the signs and some of the installation. We talked with the mayor, and we talked about refurbishing signs, and yes, we can do that, but kind of need to do this on a rather quick basis so that we don't have mixed 25s and 30s up in the city, which will be very confusing. And that size sign we actually can use for other signs that we have out there, so I'm not concerned about wasting the metal, if you will. We resurface most of our signs. So, so it's certainly something we can do. My own couple of comments. Very difficult to enforce the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit we have out there, so I don't want anyone to be disillusioned that 25 is going to be any easier to enforce. It's a feel-good thing. I think that's certainly important that we're looking in the right direction, but it is going to take enforcement, and maybe that's something that we need to consider as far as some additional dollars for some of that enforcement right off the bat to make sure that we start off in the right direction. We didn't talk about that before, but that is definitely an avenue that you should consider taking to try to make sure that enforcement is done. Ms. Parker.
What do you actually mean by enforcement?
Arresting.
And putting
speeding tickets?
Yeah,
What
officers going out in the street, reminding people of the new speed limit, ticketing when necessary, potentially ticketing when the speed is, 15 miles over the speed limit. Maybe I should shut up and let you say.
But I have another question for you, but if you're going to talk about...
No, I want him to come up.
No, but I have another question for you. Okay. So you talked about refurbishing the signs and replacing the signs about $10,000. So is there an opportunity just to actually paint the new numbers onto something that can be riveted to the current signs so that the cost is not as much, and then the signs can actually stay in place while you do it? It's not taking them down to reinstall them, but just making out of whatever material it's made out of. And I don't know all the technical terms, however, so that it, stands up to the weather, et cetera, and just riveting it over 30, just putting 25 over to 30.
Yeah,
and will there be some cost savings there?
It's possible to buy buy metal plate though and put that 25 on it. I can't go out in the field and do it. You'd have them all cockeyed to do that. But yeah, we could put them on plates and then drill the plates and put them on. But remember, a lot of these signs, like I said, are going back to 1999, and they're not in a condition that has the proper retroreflectivity to make sure that the signs are visible at night as well. So it's really an opportunity to, again, I'm not wasting any metal. I'm going to take that metal down and we're going to put a new face on it and put either another speed limit sign or some other sign that's 24 by 30 inches.
But the new numbers could be reflective if you just added the numbers, right?
It's not the proper way to do it. I will tell you that. Could it be done? Yeah, but it's not the proper way to do it. You want the signs to be able to
beyond there, you know, the signs are dirty up there, you gotta take them down and clean them. It's not that easy a process to do that.
Ms. Patrick?
Well, I mean, I think also, we spoke about the fact that if we were to make the, well, I mean, there's less signs needed if we're making this change throughout the city's speed limit. Now, some of the streets would still stay at the higher speed limit that are not city. There's stuff within the I mean, you can speak to this because you
There's a
explained it
couple
the
of
other
streets
day.
in the city, such as Upper State Street, that has a 35 mile an hour speed limit, and sections of Erie Boulevard that are state maintained that are 40 miles an hour. But I mean, the majority of the city, if you do a citywide, would be 25 miles an hour, except for in front of posted schools that are typically 15 miles an hour in the city.
So, Mr. Kuja, it's funny, I almost raised my hand, but although your comments are kind of, it's not necessarily negative, very realistic, that just lowering the speed limit might not just fix this problem of speeding in the city. But I wanted to take this opportunity to ask you, have you noticed any benefits from the LED stop signs? Increasing visibility and seeing if that actually has paid dividends?
So that's a really good question. I'm looking for the full year. We got about 6 months in on them. I've gotten extremely positive feedback from residents. You know, the intersections that we placed them, you can see those signs a full block or block and a half away. Had positive feedback from the police department as well. I think that's a great opportunity, but I think we need to be careful with them and make sure that where we place them is an intersection or location that needs an improvement, right? We don't, I'm already receiving requests from people that say, oh, you got one here, I want one. You gotta have a reason, right? You got either high accident volumes or an engineering decision based on the geometry of the intersection that makes the stop sign difficult to see. I believe that there needs to be reasons to place them. I think there's $1,700, $1,800. They're not cheap. Not that money, you know, if it's safety money, it's safety without a doubt. But you know, if both things can do the same thing, then you know, why use the more expensive tool, right? You know, why use a sledgehammer when a hammer will work, right? So yes, I think that they work very well so far, but you know, once the year is up, we'll look at the accident history for that year and see, we'll get some quantifiable data to be able to come back to you and say, yeah, this is a tool that we should you know, use on a more regular basis.
Mr. Williams, yep, before Assistant Chief speaks, I just want to say that, and I'm going to have to read this because I won't be able to remember it all, but just to speak to what you're saying, in fact, there is research that shows, first of all, if you're lowering the speed limit, let's say someone gets hit by a car, if the car is going slower, there's more of a chance that the person is going to live that gets hit. So there's that piece, but also there are, from the Insurance Institute, lowering the speed limit just by 5 miles per hour on city streets does improve safety outcomes for motorists, pedestrians, and bicyclists by reducing the incidence of speeding. The study focused on Boston, which in 2017 lowered its default speed limit from 30 to 25 miles per hour. They found that after the city lowered its speed limit, the estimated odds of a vehicle exceeding 35 miles per hour fell by 29.3%. The odds of a vehicle exceeding 30 miles per hour fell by 8.5%, and by 2.9% of exceeding 25 miles per hour. And the same thing in the New York City in terms of the percentages of accidents when they lowered from 30 to 25 miles per hour as well. So there actually has been research that has shown. I'm not suggesting at all that I think that this is going to eliminate the problem of speeding. And God knows we need to still talk about fireworks and noise as another topic, but I just wanted to bring it up as something in terms of perhaps it might help us get a handle on the speeding issue.
Mayor McCarthy?
Yeah, I think we've all gotten the phone calls on speeding or witnessed it firsthand. And some of it is a big education curve to get people to just be compliant. But it's, this topic, the next one that the council president brought up a couple times, where we've had just trouble making the decision of where to put the 1 or 2 speed humps in place. And probably the way to get the message out is doing this across the board. So you're modifying the overall speed. Those flashing stop signs do have an impact, whether it's just because they're new, but I seem to, my unofficial or non-scientific observation, we seem to be getting more compliant. So if we could do the couple of speed humps, you do the change in the speed, we do another 4 or 5 intersections with the flashing lights, that it becomes more of a citywide message that's trying to be more encompassing, that hopefully will get people's attention and, again, raise the level of compliance. And simultaneously, then we can do some enforcement. When you do the enforcement, there's pushback that being overly aggressive, nobody likes getting a ticket. And it's how do you just educate people to play by the rules, and we all benefit from that.
Mr. Almeida? So 2 things. First of all, with the insurance companies, given that if we do this, they'll probably save lots of money. We should approach them and try to get something from them.
And I'm willing to approach. I don't know how much they'll actually give.
It's worth a shot. And secondly, with the enforcement piece, the technological component is an important piece in regards to like speed cameras and things like that. Right now, we're restricted to just around school if we get home rule for that. I don't believe we did. So I think we should also make a resolution asking the state for an end to home rule on things like that, so that we can do the things that we need in our community, not just us, but across the state. And I would recommend we do a resolution asking the state to end that.
Just in follow-up to that, where the cameras around the school, we are able today to, I say we, the global community, you can put cameras on school buses that will flag the license plate reader. So when a car goes past the bus that is stopped with the lights flashing, and the fine on that is, I think, $250. I'm talking about having a conversation with school superintendent on that, where it would require their participation, some activity in the county, but I think that would give us a higher level of compliance. There's probably going to be, in the short term, where people are still violating it, you're going to get some revenue that might offset some of the costs where we're either doing the upgrades on the stop signs or to put in more speed humps and get the, again, overall speed down across the city.
Any other questions or comments?
So, I think that you.
Oh, did you have anything to say?
No, so
Yeah,
maybe a few questions. I would just say for enforcement, obviously, with John, we wanted plenty of time in advance to let people know, to do public awareness campaigns, let them know what's going on with it, and do a grace period, but possibly a time to let people know what we're doing, and then again, also just don't expect that they would change overnight as far as compliance goes. With everybody going slower in the city, or the majority of people going slower in the city, then I think that should help the masses go slower. So I think it's a good idea.
Ms. Toro?
I think the level of horn noise will go up.
That could be.
Not me.
All right, thanks, AC Level and Ms. Porterfield.
So,
Thank you.
Actually, you've got a question. So are you suggesting that this is for discussion, a call for a public hearing, or are we waiting for the building signed?
Well, I don't actually think that we need a public hearing on this issue. So I know that we would have to obviously wait for the governor to sign this into actual law, but I would like to actually move this out of our committee this evening with that understanding that if the governor, or I should say when the governor, I hope, would approve what the Assembly and Senate have already passed, that we would indeed lower our city-wide speed limit to 25 miles per hour. So I would like to move that tonight.
You could move it out to send a resolution to the governor encouraging her to sign the legislation that's been passed.
Would that be a separate or the same thing?
You can do as many things as you want.
Yeah.
But that
I think that doing the resolution, the mayor says to encourage them and then passing on once hers is signed, I just like to do things like in order. That's just, so that would be my suggestion. And also, do we need to talk about the education piece of it? And I'm glad that AC Whipple brought that up, because when we're changing policies in the city, I'm not sure we always do the best job, quite frankly, of letting people know that this is changing. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and that we should just definitely figure out an education campaign around that.
Patrick?
Well, so I had made a motion, so I guess I would have to withdraw that motion if we were going, or add a separate motion. I don't actually know
Just
the
do a
Robert's
different,
rules of order.
just a different motion, no one seconded it.
Because nobody seconded it. Okay, so my first motion would be that we create a resolution, I don't know who does that, but that we would encourage the governor to sign off on the legislation. I have the specific numbers if you need that, but you have it, right?
Yep, it's to approve the bills that were passed in the Senate and the Assembly to amend Vehicle and Traffic Law Section 1643 to reduce the minimum speed limit to 25 miles per hour.
You have the bill in the city of Schenectady.
You have the bill number?
It's Senate Bill number 2021. I don't have the Assembly number offhand.
Okay, thank you. I want to look at that one.
The last time I looked, I don't believe they had transmitted that legislation to the governor, so it's still, there's time to act on it. And they actually send it to the governor, and the governor has so many days to either sign or veto it.
So I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moving on to the second item, which is...
Well, I think I'd like to still make the other
I'm
motion.
sorry.
I would like to make the motion that once this is signed by the governor, that the city of Schenectady would lower its city's speed limit to 25 miles per hour.
Then I just go back to the Councilman Porterfield. You said going in order.
I would just like to see the bill signed before, you can do it immediately after. So, because...
Well, I'm sorry.
I'm sure once the governor gets the resolution from the council, she's going to sign this immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I just feel like, once she signs it, we would then pass that resolution. That to me just makes sense in terms of that.
So I hear what you're saying. I just know that in speaking with Mr. Coluccio, for example, if we were able to, we're going to have to be ready to go in terms of ordering signage, in terms of seeing what the staffing level is going to be like, thinking about the education. I think this is something that we've been talking about for over 2 years now. I've only been on council for 2.5 years, and we've been talking about it that whole time. So I just don't want it to be something that lingers out there and that no action is taken by this council. On something that I think that, our residents have clearly communicated to us that they want something like this to happen, so.
I don't think that we linger out there. Once she signs it, we can immediately order signs because we know this is coming. So I don't think it would be lingering out there. Mr. Coluccio says, how many months is it going to get to do this?
I'm just guessing, things have been so slow, I'm guessing 4 months before I get it. Let me know, I can order them whenever, but if she signs off, is that the...
That's the trigger.
I think it did go.
Andrew, what's the resolution if the city engineer signs the speed limit? Do they have to have a resolution doing it on their own? Is it a resolution advising the city engineer to set the speed limit?
That's a question for, I don't know if I have the privilege of the floor to speak on that.
Mr. Bolton.
Thank you. So right now, section 248.11 of the city code grants the city engineer the ability to, among other things, set the rules and regulations related to speed limits throughout the city. That's something that the city council previously granted authority to the city engineer. However, the city council may modify or repeal those rules and regulations as set by the city engineer by resolution. So the city council can act unitarily to change those rules, obviously through a resolution that would, essentially have to be either approved by the mayor or, if, vetoed going through the process. That being said, as a practical matter, and I think Mr. Coluccio brought this up, there are certain streets in the city that, are not 30 miles an hour. They're 35 miles per hour on, I think, Upper State Street, perhaps. It's obviously something the city council should consider when, if they're going to take action to determine if it's going to be every single city street within our jurisdiction that's going to be set at 25 miles per hour. And, there may be traffic implications that the city council may want to think about. I know I've talked to Mr. Wallen briefly about it. I haven't had an opportunity to speak to Mr. Coluccio about it. But, I think if you're going to pass a resolution at some point in time, are you doing this with a broad stroke and everything's going to be 25 within city streets that we have control over? Or is it going to be only certain streets? Absent, maybe it's not Upper State Street that's currently 35, maybe we want to reduce that to 30 miles per hour. Just things to consider rather than just painting with a broad stroke.
I think I might have misunderstood what I was learning, which was that I thought that some of the streets that were at the higher speed limit were not under our control, and that's why those speed limits would remain in place.
Yeah, if I may, that would only be the Erie Boulevard piece. That's not under the city's maintenance jurisdiction.
So the Upper State Street
The other
would be
State
different.
Street would be, and I believe the vehicle traffic law currently allows the city to make an individual street 25 miles an hour, just not the city in totality.
Gotcha.
I would also like us to consider a resolution to state getting rid of the home rule designation. It's an antiquated ruling that the state has, and it'll allow local communities to operate in a way they see fit. I'm not on the committee, so.
Case in point, Console Road back in 85 or around there, that was changed to 25 miles an hour. So that's the only street in the city that I can think of that is 25 miles an hour. I think that's it. Thank you.
And I would like to say, coupled with that, there's a stop sign on like almost every other corner on Console Road. You have to stop multiple times when you travel Console Road. What's that?
1895.
So.
Well, I don't think I have a second on the motion that I made.
Oh, no, did you finish it or?
Yeah, but I didn't, sounds like discussion came before.
I think it sounds like it needs, based on what Mr. Holt is saying and about the city engineer actually, saying what the speed limit would be. I think it warrants.
I'm sorry if I misspoke, and I'm sorry to just interrupt you. Right now, the city engineer has the authority to set what the speed limit is in the city. However, the council can still act to modify whatever the speed limit is in the city by resolution. So if the city engineer said, well, the law is changing, right? The law changes. City engineer can uniformly say, it's going to be 25 miles per hour on those city streets. City council can certainly, hypothetically, act on its own to modify that rule of the city engineer. To say, no, it's not going to be 25, we're going to keep it at 30. That's obviously, this is a hypothetical, but whereas the city engineer has the power to do it, so does the city council.
So I'd say based on that determination, absolutely, if someone has another comment, just indicate that. I would say if the city engineers are already able to function absent our resolution, which could be made out of order, I think it's important for us to remain in line with precedents, especially if that's not going to negatively affect the timeline for them accomplishing this, which it sounds like they will already have that authority to institute this once Governor Hochul signs.
That means, in other words, let me try to, I'm a little confused here. So what you're saying is, rather than us saying, let's lower the speed limit to 25, we'd be hoping that the city engineer would lower the speed limit to 25?
No, I'm saying that once Governor Hochul signs it, rather than putting forth a resolution before she signs it, remaining in precedence with how things normally outline, especially if that's not going to negatively implicate them getting this started before this meeting again. So I'd say if we're going to put forth our...
He's just saying wait until it's passed.
No, I know, I hear,
Signed by
I
the-
think that that's what I'm hearing from both Ms. Porterfield and Mr.
And it sounds like we could ask the city engineer to do that. I mean, does he do, I can't wait to read this, this ordinance, because based on what you said, that he could just do that. I mean, what is the, yes, he could just do that, okay. I'm getting a yes from
Even
over
if
there.
the governor doesn't sign it?
No,
No.
because that would be illegal.
Oh, okay, okay.
That's what I thought.
Mayor McCarthy?
I haven't read the full legislation. What does it say? This will take effect immediately? It'll take effect December 31st?
The draft is immediately.
Okay.
Yeah, whenever we,
Effective immediately. I think it's section 4 of the
yep.
bill.
When she signs it, you'll have to convene an emergency meeting of the city council, get together, pass it, and order the signs.
Or we could just ask the engineer to just say that. And I kind of think he would. It's like, I'm not sure.
And then in terms of your motion, I think I have to say that it seems like that is more like a government operations, but I don't, you know, because that's a general, I think what you're suggesting goes beyond public safety into more general operations. I mean, I don't,
Doesn't matter. I mean, it's a resolution to the governor and to our assemblies, state assembly and senators. I mean, it goes across a variety of things, but it's an antiquated law that the state has, and it's about time that we have, as local municipalities, the ability to do what we see fit. So I still think we should move forward with that.
I agree that we should, however, I think that we should make sure that all the information is here, that we, you know, have it in our packets to review, et cetera, and read on it, and then read up on it, so if we could bring that, I would suggest in 2 weeks, because I don't disagree that we should do that.
I don't know what you need because it's basically saying we want to end to home rule legislation. So if you tell me what you want.
So what it currently says and what you want the resolution to say, I'd like to see that in writing. That's just who I am.
and I'll withdraw my motion right now.
Are there any other comments or topics to follow the Public Safety Committee? If not, can I get a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Wow.
Speed bumps.
I apologize. Thank you. So we're going to move to the next agenda item, which is going to be discussion for installing speed humps, and I'll be briefed by Ms. Porter.
So I won't spend a long time, because we just spent a long time, and I think the mayor also mentioned speed humps. And this is something that we decided well over 2 years ago that we were going to do. My understanding is that they were ordered. I'm not sure where we are with that. And Mr. Coluccio has spoken to, like, we need to know where they were best needed by doing traffic studies and all of that. I definitely know that, you know, we need to do something, because the cars are just flying down the street like, I mean, it's not even 35, it's not even 40, some of them, the way how fast they're going. So, and I think we talked about more than 2. So we can go back and look. I don't remember the number that we looked at, but we definitely said that was something we were going to do several years ago. So I think we should definitely revisit it now, and as we're doing all of this, to incorporate that.
Any comments?
Mr. Wallen, do you remember how many or how long?
Well,
there's a set dollar amount. There's $20,000 in that.
Oh, he knows, okay.
Yeah, there was $20,000 put into the budget. And I've been working with Assistant Chief Whipple and John during this. We were working on it in 2021. It did fall off of kind of our radar, so to speak, with other things that were coming up. You know, one of the things that, you know, I just want to impart on you, and it's not to sound arrogant or condescending in any way, it is just that these are traffic control devices. There's an entire manual on traffic control devices, from your stop sign to your mile marker to yield signs. These are regulated state traffic control devices. So it's sometimes a little hard because around the table I feel like they're more seen as objects. You know, objects to be put where we think they would be effective. But, you know, they're similar to where the city engineer is the one who assigns speed limits. I did not write that. That was written historically. The reason for it was that the city engineer sat up there at the time with 50 staff members, and they did all the analysis of the city, and they assigned speeds. You know,
we had 45.
Yeah. Well, now, you know, now we have less than 4. But now, yeah. But what I'm getting at with that was like, so that's where, like, I think that if we're going to go to 25, it is nice to say, but like, I'd like to talk with the CDTA. They have bus routes that use State Street. Those buses go 35, they go 40 on Erie. They use I just like to make sure that everybody's aware, because we have, you know, we have main lines, and then we have secondary streets, you know, and I don't want to, like we were talking about, paint with this broad brush out there of, you know, we wait when it's 25. You know, because I see the Ungers are here, I'm sure they're here because they want the stockade to be 25. They probably want the stockade to be 50.
City, the whole city.
Oh, the whole city.
Well, not
And
every
statistics.
street. Not every street.
Not every street.
Yeah.
But, you know, and statistics can be misleading, because if you go from 30 to 25, yes, accidents go down, but where did 25 come from? If you go to 20, it goes down even more. If you go to 15, I can walk away. So, like, where did the number 25 get really pulled from? It got pulled from because it's a number. So I would like to look at it more, and that's where I'm kind of going with speed humps, is that AC Whipple's doing a great job, and he actually found this speed hump procedure from the city of Rochester. And this is saying that, you know, if you would like the speed hump in Rochester, you have to make a letter of request. It has to be evaluated by engineering, classification, features. They do a traffic study. Then they have considerations of, you know, where is it? Is it by a school? Is it by here? And then they need a petition from the residents of 75%. Because one of the things I did not think about, but Mr. Puccio and I were talking about, is we have had things like this in the past, and residents don't like the noise they make sometimes when they go over it, because it's an audible da-doom, da-doom, da-doom. And it's fine when you're at work, but when you're trying to go to sleep, some people say, oh my God, this thing out here, you know, and then everybody wants it, you know, not in my backyard, put it down the way, you know. So we kind of came up with all this, and we talked about it, and buying them is easy. I can spend $20,000 tomorrow with Anthony, and we can get, you know, we can get them here, and if we need more, we'll buy more. But then the process of where, I don't want to use that, like, we have to find it. I know that actually you were looking into some areas today based off of their information. And I mean, you had a couple, and I don't want to put you on the spot with it.
Yeah, we had 4 really the spots.
And there might not even be locations that you're thinking of. They might just be
I'm not thinking
locations
of
that.
Like, how much have you seen behind that chair?
Not that short.
I don't get it, that's short.
One of the things with the Rochester application, if you will, talks about, you know, where to put them and looking at engineering specifics concerning it. Very important piece in there, it talks about parallel roads and not putting them on parallel roads, which is something that I'm sure we would automatically do because of the configuration of the city, but they don't want you to move the traffic from one street to another. That's what we hear all the time about doing things on one street. Say you want to talk about, we mentioned Council Road, so let's talk about the streets between Council and State Street, right? You put them on parallel streets, and you do this on one street, and it pushes all the traffic to the other. So we want to make sure we don't do something to cause more of a problem on an adjacent street than the street that we correct.
Yeah, and another good one in here, John, touched on, Bill, was that the street they have under the street must not be a primary, which we would
Okay.
call
State Street.
but if emergency vehicles are going to utilize it,
Right.
primarily fire trucks, but they don't want them on that. They also have in here that they want it primarily residential street, not a commercial street. So those are all the things that, and that, I guess if we have that guidance, if we follow this, which is already a really great procedure, and we start looking, and that's what, that you started looking at, it's kind of in the guise of that, of where they could go.
Yeah, that they're so far away from turns, they can't be over 7% grade, they can't be so close to a stop sign, there's a lot of things that go into it. Just looking at it quickly, without all those things, in fact, just a list from the traffic with No Watt by Steinmetz, Eastern Parkway by Elmer, Dwayne by Martin Luther King, State doesn't work, Main Street by Education Drive, there's different ones that we're getting regular complaints on, so those are things that we're.
And you have to look at the need to put multiple on a street as opposed to just one, because we believe that you're gonna see the traffic speed up right after they go over that to make up the loss of time. So, if we're gonna do this, I think you gotta consider a couple of them in an area to really make an impact.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Patrick?
So do you recommend doing the speed humps or not doing the speed humps?
I
With
think
everything that
it
you
is,
just told us.
I think it's worthwhile that we can try. I guess the thing is that what we were talking about is, it was a bigger conversation internally than just buy them and put them down. And when the conversation got that big, I think everybody wasn't, right there prepared to make all these decisions, so it kind of got sat there, like that. And I'm glad that you're bringing it back up. It's not that we can't, it's just, this is another initiative, and I don't want to just putting them down. It's going to have a season. One of the things I was talking about with John, and I believe I met with Lieutenant Kelly about it, was, are we doing any data collection pre and post, and then how that's going to work? Are we putting up a speed camera that has the flashing to say, okay, everybody was going 42, and then we put this down, and it did go down. But then, on top of that, in talking with Kristen and development and some other people from the engineering side, and it actually was in the paper, I believe, with Tom Carey, is that there's the whole other aspect of, complete streets and trying to make a street feel narrower and trying to do it naturally instead of artificially. And, that's another thing that, we're really not quite there yet. One of the things I didn't say what we're doing is, on console, we're going to be putting in, I call them blaze sticks. I don't know what the post reflectors. We're going to be trying those, which is, you're used to a very bright stop sign, and the new thing is you put on a reflector on the post. And when you see that, when you drive console after those are in, they're going to get your attention. And they are a fraction of the cost. Yeah, but we were just trying to, because we talked about it, those signs are expensive, and how can we do things? I know that we wanted to do trees maybe some places. We have that study going on, but this can be something. But I guess my issue is that if we find that the speed hump worked, then is the next step that we're going permanent? Is that it, or is this a temporary? Because we don't have permanent speed humps in the Northeast, and even you don't see a lot of them. There are locations I know of in the area, Colony specifically, but then you get to that next level. So what is the objective we're trying to achieve, and is this the right tool to do it? And it takes a lot of thought, and I guess we haven't had a lot of time to put all that thought into it, so which is why it got kind of, but we have the list. We did put a lot more effort into it since you've asked about us to pick this up. I think that Rochester's done a lot of great work to kind of just give us a template. So I think we could probably sit down and come up with some areas and get some things ordered, and we could try. It's just that I just want to make sure that we're always using these things as tools, and we know what we're trying to get out of the tool.
So with that, as just a rough number from last year, the price was around $5,000 for one hump, for one.
We get 4.
And then we did factor in the cost for the signage around it and for the bureau to put them in, install them, and remove them in storage. So, and then when we go to order them, we have to know where they're going first, because each one is printed with different arrows and different emblems. So first it would be to determine where they're going, and then we order them, and then we have to talk to the bureau about installation and storage.
And money to buy them.
getting way better.
Yes, and the other thing you guys briefly touched on, but it comes up a lot in my circles of conversations, is they call it the 3 E's, and it's education, enforcement, and engineering. And, you know, education is hard because you're putting that on the person. And enforcement is difficult because you're putting it on the police, and the police are, you know, already time-strapped. So then naturally, everybody goes to engineering, you know, and sometimes though, you cannot engineer things. You know, there has to be, you have to use the enforcement, you have to use the education. You cannot engineer someone on their phone, you cannot engineer speeding necessarily all the time. So I think we really, if we can go this route, but I think those other 2 E's, we always say we really have to work on. So, and we'd like to come back in the next section or 2 with a location and a plan when we have something, or how we will pick it up. I just don't know what.
Yeah, that's, I would like to see, does anybody have any preferences?
So I think, like the mayor suggested earlier, it'll be a big plan with the speed limit and the new signs and maybe a few more lit stop signs, and maybe, you know, that all entailed in the one.
Yeah. You know,
So, I would like to know whether by the time I'm 70 years old instead of 63, we might be able to actually do something in the city of Schenectady around reducing the speed infractions, because I think that's the issue that I'm feeling. I mean, this has been, how many years that we've been talking about the speed bumps? And, you know, I don't know, it's very frustrating, because I think, I hear what you're saying, but, you know, I think we have to start to take some action somehow. So,
Chris, where is the process for redoing Brandywine Avenue from State to 890? That we've rejected that?
Yep, it's out to bid right now.
So back out to bid. That still is the highest incident area for auto pedestrian events, just outright traffic accidents. So, you know, it's unfortunate the numbers came in high. We're going to have to do something there if, I want the precedent, if the bids come in high again, you know, I'd come back to the council, look to put some more money on the table so that we could get that done at those series of intersections there. Is that is going to pay off just in our overall number of events?
I agree with that. That is our 2 busiest blocks, and including downtown. Brandywine, those 2 blocks are significant. Oh, you know, the other thing I was going to say, even John, we talked about it, how many years ago, was it 5 years? Those little yellow signs, those notification signs, you know, those are something that came out that state.
Yes, I remember having this conversation.
You know, I would love to see those effective. If we put them on Randolph and we put them on Rose, and these little, you know, that they say, cross traffic doesn't stop, this, you know, and those are the things that, you know, I think if we all tally it, I mean, there has been improvements made, but these are these are next. I'd like to know before we put them down, I guess we'll have to work internally. Then what? Is it a permanent? Are we going to start seeing these and then we pick them up in the winter time? Or do we make them permanent? And I always look around because I've driven a lot of municipalities. We just don't see speed bumps in a lot of municipalities in that kind of way to address the issue. So, but it's not to say that we can't set a trend.
So can I be clear? So Mayor, are you saying to put those on Brandywine? Because I thought Brandywine was a primary street.
No.
Okay. All right, just wanted to be clear.
We have out to bid to redo that 2 blocks or a little over 2 blocks in some of the adjacent streets. And just unfortunately, the bid came back in high, so Chris has gone back out. But that'll be a rebuilding of those in 2 blocks with, again, some of the traffic control devices.
Well, to Ms. Patrick's point, I'd like to see us do something as well. We have been kicking this around for a very long time. So I would like to see something in a couple weeks, see if we could just get this ball rolling.
Sure, not a problem.
But we don't want the ball rolling too fast.
Yeah, exactly. Control the speed limit thing. I mean, I think we also need a recommendation about whether, in fact, that is the smartest thing. The speed bumps might not be the solution. So, you know, I guess when we come back, that would be part of that as well.
Yeah, you know, we were talking about configurations and making sure they don't block drainage and not leaving gaps. You know how if you go to a parking lot and you see that gap in the middle, everybody shoots the gap faster than when we go over. You know, we were talking about that, you know, because the thought was, okay, do we leave a gap for a fire truck? It's like, well, if you leave a gap for a fire truck, you're leaving a gap for everybody. So there is some discussion, and like I said, we have a good template here. I mean, City of Rochester clearly is putting them in. Maybe I have to do a tour out to Rochester and meet with them and see. Maybe
Let's
that
hang
would be
out, I
something.
wanna go.
But yeah, I can get you something. What I can do is take a map, highlight, arrow the streets that kind of what we're saying don't meet the criteria the right way, and then what areas would meet the criteria based off of the information that you're still collecting, and we'll show some other areas. And in the meantime, AC and Whipple and Anthony, we can order, you know, I mean, they're a set width, we can get them there, this section, and at least get them here, because I don't know what the lead time on something that would be, but make sure we get it, because similarly to the signs, even though we're gonna say, if the governor makes it 25 tomorrow, it's gonna take John 4 months to get the signs here, and we can't do both. I think that would be a little much. But, okay, well, then I will come back in 2 weeks with more of a plan.
Consensus 2 weeks. Any other items of public safety? Just making sure this time. All right, if not, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
I'd like to call to order City Development and Planning. And Mr. Wallen, if you don't mind, I wanted to move up one of the items on the agenda. I believe there's people who have been sitting quite some time. So I wanted to move item number 5 to the top, if you don't mind.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to do item number 5 first, amendment to the CDBG contract with Miracle on Craig Street. Ms. Diop?
Good evening, everyone. So this is just bringing back the request proposed 2 weeks ago, Miracle on Craig Street, former Carver Center. We have the balance of $103,685 that we're looking to extend the period of performance with Miracle on Craig Street until December 31st of this year and amend the scope of work for the remaining unexpended balance. There was some questions for certain materials that were provided to the council, and I believe the council had recommendations as well based on this, so that's why we're here. We do have Ms. Sheila Rivera here as well if there's questions.
So the last time this came before the council, there was an item in there that was asking for a consultant. There was a lot of discussion around that, and frankly, not the support for it. There was the impression that the duties that were written into that particular one were things that were being covered by TAP. And so the budget has been amended to include all the services under TAP as they have put forward, and nothing else. Well, there has been a change in terms of there was a remaining like 22,000 something, which is put into the summer landscaping. So this is all the remaining funds that out of the 150, I believe, was the starting. The remaining funds that Miracle on Craig Street has, right? This is the remaining.
Yes, that's what's remaining.
Are there questions? Mr. Zoma, you have a question?
Not a question, more a comment. I had the opportunity to visit the site this weekend, and definitely the work that they've made over the last few months has, it deserves applause, so definitely I think it's well deserved. I think at this point, I'm excited as a new council member to see this project continuing forward, although it wasn't conducted in the manner that you intended. Still, I think seeing this project move forward for the benefit of that specific area, but also for the city as a whole, I think is what we need to keep our focus on. So I just wanted to make sure that was.
Thanks for stopping by, I appreciate that.
Did you have questions, anyone? Any questions? So, did you have a statement you wanted to make?
No, I just wanted to actually come up here because he wanted to make a statement. If you guys don't have any questions, you guys requested more information, we provided it, and I hope that it's, pretty clear on, this position is important. I know that all the other line items were pretty clear, you guys seemed fine with it, except for the
site manager position, and like I said, we provide more information as requested, and yeah, just looking forward to more support on this.
So you have the budget before you, so I'll entertain a motion. Ms. Patrick?
So this is just to extend what we're doing, and now it's 103,000. But this is the
It was
final,
always
this is the
103,000.
final,
The
the final
difference is
breakdown.
that it seems like what the council is proposing, or the CPD committee is to, from what Marion said, is to fund the full TAP proposal, but not the board consultant, which was previously
Right, that's, I just wanted to
proposed by
clarify
Mr.
that.
Bearson. Right. Yep.
So I have no question. So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you. All right, so the first item on the agenda is discussion of the city's annual MS4 report. Mr. Long.
Hello. So, per law, every year we are required by the state to put together our annual MS4 report, which is for stormwater in the city of Schenectady. The city no longer has a stormwater officer. That position is open. So we have been contracting with CT Mail, a local engineering firm who specializes in things like this. They help us assist with this document. So what we do is we just talk about how we are making people aware of stormwater and how stormwater affects the rivers, and kind of inspecting it. Once a year we have to go inspect, make sure on a dry day that there's no runoff or effluents coming out of the pipes. The big thing of note this year is what we did was, I was to find a page for you, I apologize, but what we had was we had a thorough review done of all of our outfalls. And after that review, what we found was that we were double counting a lot of outfalls in a way that we were able to reduce them. And so that was a nice benefit to what we were able to do. I'm just looking for a page, I don't have it in front of me. So what it is that if you're familiar with, College Creek, oh here it is, outfalls map 29, so it's right on the third page. So what we were doing is we were counting every culvert originally in College Creek, and essentially it's actually one. So you would come out, you have one out under the, I believe it's West Alley, where it enters the stock to the GE plot, that is an outfall. As it goes under Avon, as it goes under the road, those are not outfalls, those are culverts. So that originally was mapped, not by myself, but by a predecessor as an outfall, so we eliminated those. So we were able to go from 54 to 29, and the 29 allows us now to just be more efficient. Most of these are along the river. We have, several along the river, the biggest being College Creek, and we go down and we'll be able to inspect those.
Sorry, you said page what?
Page 3, just right there for 29. So as you see, this year number of approximate of outfalls mapped. We mapped all of them this year because this was our first year doing it. So, yeah, right. One more page.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, right there, I'm sorry, it's on the back, the 29 right there. So it's on the back page. So that is one thing. One area I will admit that we need to improve, and I'll just full disclosure, is CT Mail is going to do some training for us. Part of the requirement is that our OGS staff receive some training about how to spot illicit discharges, just to be aware of things like that. We were doing them, and then up to COVID, we kind of stopped any kind of in-person training. Virtual training for our guys is very difficult because, it's more of a garage than a classroom. But now that everything has calmed down, we are looking to have CT Mail go out and do some focused training for our water and sewer departments, even possibly our garbage departments, because as we were talking about previously, they're out and about, and to be able to spot things. All right, so that's what we really want to do, is make sure people are able to spot things, because they are the kind of the eyes on the street. I am more or less always in City Hall. So what we're going to do is, if you have any questions, you can ask. It's a pretty generic, boring report, but we do take it, we put it out, the public can see it today, then we put it on the website, and then it's always on the website 365 days, because that's a requirement as well. And we're going to try to, like I said, up our training, up some of it. We used to do a table at the farmer's market. We're probably gonna bring that back where we have a little display. We work with the county, you know, do you know discharge, a little public input like that. So those are the couple of things that we want to do. Mostly involves training in public, and for the last couple of years, training in public kind of were low, but we're gonna bring it back up.
Mr. Mayor?
Chris, I noticed one small error that I didn't pick up when I signed it.
Okay.
Is the county's address is listed as 107 Knott Street. It's actually 107 Knott Terrace.
Okay, I will fix that. What page are you on, Mr. Mayor?
Page 3 of the report, page 37 of the council packet.
Okay. I see it. All right, I will make that change. Thank you.
Any other questions? But we just wanted to,
Oh, do we
just
have
to
to
discuss
move it?
this. We don't need to move anything.
No.
Just give
Oh,
them-
it's just
yeah.
Just discussion.
Yes. All right. Second item on the agenda, to authorize the issuance of a revocable permit number 671 to Bear and Bird Boutique.
So, Bear and Bird is a new gallery on pedestrian J Street, and I would like to draw everyone's attention to the sign because it is very cute. It has a bear and bird on it. So they will be utilizing an existing bracket, and this has no planning. It is very similar in style and size to the other signs that are out there, kind of boutique. So we don't have any issues with it.
I'll move it. I'll second. All those in favor? Aye. Next item is to award bid contract for the City of Schenectady Fire Training Facility improvements. Mr. Wallen?
Sure. I'm going to speak about both of these because they're semi-related.
3 and 4?
We can move them. What?
3 and 4?
3 and 4. So the city engaged with H2M Architects to make improvements to the fire training facility that's located at the corner of Gulf and Oregon. That is the tower that has been there. The tower has been derelict for quite some time due to just some mismaintenance on it, windows open, had a lot of issues with birds and nesting and things like that, so the tower kind of fell into a state of disrepair. Similarly, a situation with the smokehouse, because that training actually kind of changed. So through our conversations with the fire department and H2M, we decided to move in a different path. That building was small, it was solid, but it just, for their training purposes, it did not fit. So that building was removed in-house by city personnel, and we're looking to replace that building. The first one we have, however, is Midstate. They are going to be renovating the existing tower. So right now, the tower is completely clean. It has been abated. It has no more varmint. It is sealed. And what Midstate is going to do is go in, continue refurbishment, replace all the boards with actual windows. The windows will be different based off of what was already been discussed in the fire's procedures. So some windows are double hung, some windows come all the way up, depending on where they are on the building and how they're going to do for their training. So the first is to renovate the existing training tower, and that is to Midstate Industries. We have worked with Midstate in the past. We work with them quite a bit. Reputable company that we've never had issues with.
Any questions?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'll move it.
I'll second. All those in favor? Aye.
Okay, the second is for the new training structure, which is essentially a pole barn Morton style building. The building will be large enough where they can get some apparatus in it, and will be a larger dry space where they can put an apparatus in, or if not, I don't remember the name of it. I think it's confidence training, where they actually set up obstacle courses and they put it in the dark and they have to kind of navigate. So it's a bigger building. They realized they didn't need to, break into the roof so much and do what they did in the older style, and then they wanted the extra space. So this is it's a simple structure, similar to what we did at the golf course. It's going to be used for training purposes. The reason we did them separate is just because we wanted to make sure that a company that did the buildings might not do renovations, and that is what we got. So we have a renovation company and a building company, so it did work. And the low bid was the same company that is doing the golf course, which is not surprising. And the golf course, we have had a very successful time with him, so we have no reason to, from my perspective, not go forward with the next building.
Any questions?
I'll move it.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. I think that this is tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, next item would be item number 7. Oh, I'm sorry. Swimming pool agreement, item number 6. Mr. Copeland?
Thank you. For a number of years, the city has contracted with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Schenectady Incorporated for the operation of city-owned swimming pools, which includes the provision of lifeguard staffing. In 2021, the city paid the Boys and Girls Clubs $145,000 for the operation of city pools. Due in part to staffing concerns, the negotiated contract for this current year would be $155,000. Under the terms of the agreement, the Central Park, Front Street, and Quackenbush pools will be operated through August 26th, 7 days per week at Central Park, and through August 19th, 6 days per week at Front Street and Quackenbush. The Boys and Girls Club has the requisite experience and familiarity with the city's pools to operate them, and because it's been difficult, according to the Boys and Girls Club, to find trained lifeguards, they're looking to increase the contract amount to cover the additional wages they would have to pay those lifeguards. So, seeking approval from the committee to to authorize this agreement with the Boys and Girls Club for the full council's consideration for the 2022 season.
Any questions?
It's not a question, just general information for the council. It's my intent not to open the Quackenbush pool on review initiated by the council. Mr. Williams, we've gone through and done some of the evaluation. Quackenbush, excuse me, not Quackenbush, Hillhurst. Hillhurst.
Which one are you not going to?
Hillhurst.
Okay.
I apologize for misstating that. Had been losing a significant amount of water every day. We have not been able to identify that leak or where the water is going, but the potential is there that some of the subsurface of the pool, because it's the lower drains, they've filled the pool at the lower level, the water goes out, so it's the lower drains that are losing it. It's going somewhere. I'm worried about that there may be some compromise of the surface or the support structure for the pool. So if we fill the pool up, there is the potential of a failure with the pool. And just at this point, not ready to run that risk until we can do a more in-depth evaluation with it.
All right. Ms. Patrick?
Is the Front Street pool actually usable?
I don't know if you could go swimming tonight, but
Okay. For some reason, I thought it was like in total disrepair. But, okay.
I didn't think it was useful either, but that's just anecdotal information, nothing specific.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing. It's a good thing.
So, any other questions?
I'll move it.
I'll second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, item number 7 now, discussion hosting quarterly city council meetings outside City Hall. Follow-up. Mr. Williams?
So not to belabor this topic, I think the last meeting we were just waiting to get more information about where and what topic. I think the apparent one would be addressing the speed limit signs. I think hearing it from both AC Whipple and also from Mr. Wallen, talking about the 3 E's, education, enforcement, and engineering. I think it's important for us to get behind a education campaign from the city to inform people, and I think using an opportunity to meet outside of the council will not only be able to have us put this in a more transverse venue. I think, pausing really quick, having the opportunities to go to the Office of Cannabis meeting, and seeing that room was packed full on that topic was exciting. And trying to figure out ways to kind of meet people where they are. I think taking this topic into the community and allowing us to put in place the resources such as the police and also engineering, and then providing them the resources to potentially have a public hearing on the road, I think is important. Or it could be an option.
Ms. Patrick?
So I would not do the speeding topic. I didn't get a chance to talk with you about this earlier, but we don't need to do a public hearing about the speeding topic. I think we've definitely gotten enough input from our residents about the speeding topic, but I think if we were going to have a town hall outside of here, which is I think what we talked about at the last, whenever it was that we did say, yes, let's try to do some town halls. I think a larger issue might be around noise and behavioral change around noise, and whether we include fireworks in that. That maybe soliciting public input on how we might be able to make those kinds of behavioral changes was just something I was thinking about after I received your message. But because that's also the other quality of life issue that I think that we hear so much about. But I don't know if anybody else had a topic, but I don't really think that we need to have a whole town hall on speeding issues.
So in terms of that, I did actually have something. It's public banking. I think that's a topic that maybe not a lot of people hear about, but I think it may be a topic worth talking to people about in terms of public banking and how the positive impact it could have on the community. So that's a topic that I thought we could to have at a meeting. If I could just address I'm kind of concerned about the noise part of it, because for me, as we think it through, like, if we bring this out, so we should also come with some solutions. And so because I really wish we had a solution, because just like everyone else here, I hear about it all the time, nonstop, phone calls, emails, you name it, we have it. And we definitely do need to I was at a meeting just before this one, and noise was one of the big complaints about it. And so, we looked at the ordinance, and there is, the city does have an ordinance, but it was more about, and the police were there, and they were talking about their priorities calls, that, if they have a priority 3, if they have a priority 1, noise is going to be a priority 3. He specifically said, you may not see us for 5 hours. Mm-hmm. So I don't disagree, it's something that needs to be discussed, but however, I think it can get pretty emotional if we have it there. Wondering how we come with it to say, and this is what we can do about it.
So,
yes, go ahead, Ms. Patrick.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So maybe we need to each think about or send topics, because I'm hearing what you're saying. I think when I think of a town hall, I think it's, the idea of being able to actually solicit input from folks. So maybe that's too specific a topic also. In other words, like maybe inflation as a town hall issue, or environmental issues, or something that we can think of some speakers, or I'm just saying, maybe we should be kind of thinking of some topics and sending ideas.
So it wasn't too hard pressed on any one topic, just more or less the intent of doing something in the community. I can absolutely look and do a deep dive on the noise ordinances and public banking, and then come together with a proposed agenda, and then we can kind of have some information behind that.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Are you looking to do a city council meeting? Or just going to be a separate convening of the council?
My intent was to have a city council meeting.
And I think that's a good idea. The only thing I would submit for your consideration is sometimes, you're going to want to do a topic that looking for public input. You might have something on the agenda for a public hearing. Mm-hmm. The people for the public hearing might not be concerned about the topics there, and those are people who would traditionally come to City Hall. You don't want to create an impression that the people who might be some controversy with the public hearing, you're moving it out of City Hall, and so there's just a scheduling issue there, which should be fairly easy to work around. It's just seen sometimes where the public hearings can be more controversial than the overall agenda, and then other times everything just runs smooth, and I like to say we're all one big happy family.
Ms. Patrick?
I think though, when we talked about this last time, we did decide, I felt that we had decided that we weren't going to do a city council meeting off-site, but that instead we were moving to I have 3 nodding heads here in a row, that it was more around the idea that we were going to try to host some town meetings on topics that might be of interest to folks, to come and learn something at the town meeting. At least that was my impression when we left that last meeting.
Go ahead, Ms. Williams.
So I think the last meeting it was that there would be considerations from both. Wasn't necessarily that we would not go down one, but again, definitely taking and heeding the mayor's recommendation of making sure we're intentionally looking at all avenues of potentially exposing ourselves to this. I don't want to rush anything. I don't want to expose us to potential backlash or negatively affect topics that are of benefit to the city. So I'm going to do the work so I can come back with an update.
Mr. Toro.
Mr. Williams, I totally agree with you. I mean, our meetings are kind of sad. We need to bring people in. But going to them, I don't think necessarily would be the answer. But again, if we visit their neighborhood meetings, which I tried to visit everyone's neighborhood meetings. But if we go as a group, I mean, it's already being done. And we bring a speaker with us that day, something. But those meetings are already being held in different neighborhoods. And we just do a rotation of all our neighborhood meetings. Yeah.
Yes, Ms. Williams.
So I'd say if you'd like to organize a time for all of us to get together and attend one meeting, I would absolutely not be opposed to that.
Yeah. I most have stopped for the summer, but yeah.
So we also have liability potential if we have a council meeting outside of City Hall. So a worker gets in an accident, there's potential liability. We have a number of other issues. The mayor brought up a couple of those. So a council meeting outside of here, I mean, we've seen the attendance when something of interest happens. It's been pretty good lately. And, you know, the cannabis meeting, granted it was off-site, but it's right diagonal to City Hall. So I really feel strongly this is our center of government. It's a symbol, and that's where we should have our meetings. Having a town hall, all for, with a prescribed topic and bringing in the neighborhood or people around the city, fine. That's just us as a council showing up. But a council meeting, I mean, been pretty steadfast with that.
I just will say that this is not new. It's been done before the council. I don't know if the mayor was on the council at the time. He's been on the council for a long time, but so it's not a new concept. The city, I'll go back and give you the information. So City Hall meetings have been held outside of City Hall before, so it would not be a first. And in terms of, you know, I mean, we did do the cannabis meeting. Yes, it was there. That's because of the size of the space. I just think that it's, you know, as I said before, and I'll say again, that we continually go to people when we want to, you know, to solicit them. And so bringing a meeting into the community to me is not outside of us just saying to them, okay, we come to you during election time. Now we're coming to you as well and putting something right in your neighborhood. I don't think that's beyond the realm of possibility, and I think it actually even makes sense. But Mr. Williams said he's going to bring back some other considerations for us. And do you want more topics do you want us to send you more topics, or are you just going to work with the ones that we discussed tonight?
We're going to discuss.
All right. Is there any more input on that topic? Okay. Then I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Moved.
Okay, we'll be going to executive session for the purpose of property sales.
Yes.
And I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.